Good.
Doing great.
Yeah, everybody, welcome to Fred Hampton Leftist podcast. This is kind of impromptu for us, but there's been a lot of things going on the past 2 days. I'm sure you guys have seen on Twitter. First and foremost, we want to talk about Jim Clyburn. So I'm sure a lot of you probably seen that Jim Clyburn has endorsed Chantel Brown, which is Nina Turner's opponent, which I'm not surprised that Clyburn has done that. He's establishment, he's corporate. But I want to open it up to the panel because I have an article too that I want to transition to about how Black people feel about Joe Biden. But I want to open it up to Nick and RJ. How do you guys feel about Clyburn's endorsement?
It brought flashbacks, but I feel like this time around, at least the progressive was probably going to win. And honestly, it makes it so hard for people like me who are very critical of Nina to continue to be as critical when you see bad faith attacks from like K-Hive, like I got my Twitter mentions from defending Nina Turner and going after Clyburn, like my mentions were blowing up.
Yeah, you got to tell what's going on with that, because I remember you was talking to a guy who always. I think he like kind of gave up on me because I got on Rachel so many times. The guy you're going back and forth with. What was they upset with you about?
Okay, so like I don't have to go back on my Twitter thread because like I forget about it because I just quote tweet him and like leave.
One second, Gani, we didn't get to that. I see Gani was like, "Are you gonna?" He asked you if you're gonna talk about the Jimmy Cow situation. We probably get into that a little bit later, guys. But RJ, go ahead, finish your thought.
Okay, so I tweeted out Jim Clyburn giving his 2 cents in endorsement to Chantel Brown in hopes of defeating Nina Turner. Fuck Clyburn, fuck Chantel Brown, and fuck the Black Congressional Caucus. And so I got like 19 quote tweets. I got people saying, I've lost my way. You're following an old white man who thinks it's a class struggle. So this one fool quote tweeted me. What did he say? He said, one of them said, I'm big mad. Someone said the Republican Party welcomes you. I got someone quoting Dr. King saying I'm wrong. Someone said,
"Yeah." Dr. King to defend Jim Clyburn. What?
Yeah. Someone said, "Fuck you." Someone said, "Imagine hating yourself so much that you're willing to allow." It says WS. I don't even know what the abbreviation WS is. Says followers a safe space for their racism couldn't be me. Let me see. There's one of them that really almost tried to quote tweet me, but I got his ass. So this is Rugged Amethyst, and I think you guys saw this. So he says the way these folks, yes, it says the way these folks talk about Black Democrats is really telling. I should put this on the screen. I don't know how to share this, but I have my Twitter.
You should be able to share screen, can you?
It's at the bottom.
Okay, let me screen share.
Hey, Diddy, how you doing?
Okay, you have to enable me to screen share, Nick, because
man, I always gotta do something, man. How do I do that? No, there you go. It's not that hard. You should be able to share screen now.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
I didn't even have my mic plugged in and everything. This is impromptu, guys. You guys know how we do it.
Yeah, so this is my original tweet. I'll read this again so people that are coming in can know what's going on. So I said, Jim Clyburn giving his 2 cents in endorsement to Chantel Brown, who's going against Nina Turner in hopes of defeating Nina Turner. Fuck Clyburn, fuck Chantel Brown, and fuck the Black Congressional Caucus. So these are like multiple quote tweets I've had on Twitter, and my computer is a little bit slow. So you had some who are agreeing. You had some said I'm big mad. People who are just dumb as hell. Someone said the Republican Party welcomes me. This is the one I was talking about. And then you got the one that it says appears Nina after herself. You got more people replying under. This is the one that really got on my nerves, which I really had to comment on. Here we go. Yeah, so this is like Rugged Amethyst. It says the way these folks talk about Black Democrats is really telling. So this is like a K-Hive account. Like K-Hive likes the fuck and retweeted out of all of this.
Yeah, he definitely a K-Hive op. Cause he always got to me. I racial him so much. I'm like, dude, I'm done with you. He just don't care. Like there's like the same with Chantel. Chantel put me on the list. Like Chantel has gotten me so much publicity. Like for real. Like we went viral because she put me on the list with like all these people. They got a way bigger platform than me. And I was like, okay. And the people was like, all right, who is this socialist MMA dude now? And I'm like, all right, thanks. I put my article in there, got 1.7 thousand likes. It's like I was like, they have no shame. Their job is literally just to go out and attack black leftists and anyone who opposes the Democratic Party the best they can, even if they're making idiots out of themselves. So I saw you was going through it yesterday. I didn't get a chance to really jump in, but I was like, it's going to be the same thing. Like no one buys what they're selling, and like you have like this fake artificial K-Hive they created on Twitter. But we talked about this on my show before. K-Hive was literally a bunch of liberal white women cosplaying as Kamala Harris supporters. And that's shown in the polls. Like when Kamala Harris dropped out in December, she had 1% black support. So that's not me saying that. That's not me making it up. That's literally me going by the facts. That the idea that you have all these black people defending Kamala Harris online, there's no way that's real. Because the numbers doesn't back it up. Like the numbers literally show Kamala Harris' base of support was the same as Amy Klobuchar's. Upper class, bourgeoisie liberals, that was her base. So the idea that I'm supposed to believe that these, like you see these black K-Hivers, that they're not DNC ops, or they don't come from generational wealth, they're not Jim Clyburn Democrats, which don't exist in what I see in the black community. Because most black people don't vote. Because we're like, all right, this system sucks. So then you have 80% of the voters that do vote Democrat, and then out of those 80%, how many of those are actually enthusiastic Democrats? Instead of people that are like, I guess I'll vote for a Democrat because Republican sucks. What, maybe 1 out of 10? So you have maybe, and this is me being very generous, maybe 1 out of 5 black people that are like, I'm a hardcore loyal Democrat. Do you guys have any objection to that? Because that's my calculations.
She didn't even have support from black women.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean. Like, we see, like, in general, black people see through them, and we only vote for the lesser two evil because that's the propaganda that's been placed on us. That's how we've been taught to think. So, like, no one is like, oh, I love the Democratic Party, where I come from. And I understand there are some exceptions because there are some black people who are, like, really into but that's like, I told you, my calculation is like, that's 1 out of 5. Because once you take out, for one, and I'll explain my mindset here. You can take it out the share screen now, I think.
Okay, no problem.
My calculation is based on this. Once you consider the fact that over half of black people don't vote, take 50% out. What you hear all the time. I literally get even some leftists that say this. They once again show how a lot of white leftists are bad on race. They don't know the black community. So I literally have people came at me multiple times. I can show you guys. Well, I was like, yo, black people don't like the Democratic Party. They're like, why did all the black people vote for Joe Biden then? I'm like, bro, why are you not considering the black people that don't vote? And then that's always shut them down because they're like, oh, I'm out of touch. I didn't realize that black people don't like the Democratic Party. So then you take half off, right? Because half don't vote. And then how many of those people are voting just because the lesser two evil? Oh, damn, I got to vote for Joe Biden because Donald Trump suck. Yep. It's not like, oh, I love Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. No one's like, I don't know anyone like that. Once again, I also speak anecdotally and I also use logic. It's like, I don't know anyone that's like, oh my God, I love Kamala Harris. Oh my God, I love Joe Biden. They usually just like, my dad vote Democrat, my mom vote Democrat. I remember when I was playing growing up, someone told me like, yeah, you probably should vote Democrat. I'm like, why? We vote Democrat. And I remember they literally they explained it to me when I was a liberal, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. They were like, Republican bad, and Democrats are more pro-black, and that's the propaganda. So it's not like they like Democrats. They going by tradition. The same way there are white people in the South, they vote Republican. They don't know why. There have been famous segments of people who've done like, why do you vote Republican? Oh no. What, you support this? Why are you supporting Republican? My dad vote Republican. That's the same for Democrats. Especially among the black community. You got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, that's true in my family. I mean, I question all the time, why are we Democrats? So, like, this is and when I make valid criticism about the Democratic Party, the entire last summer, they're like, look, this is a Democratic house. I'm like, okay. Okay. I mean, so look,
I remember you been telling me stories about your liberal parents. It's painful. I'm very lucky that my mom is apolitical. My mom is so apolitical that she became a lefty just to support me. She's like, who's Bernie? All right, I guess I want Bernie to win. Like, she don't care about politics at all. So she like became a lefty just to support me. And my dad, I told stories one time. My dad still have a soft spot for Obama, but my dad is anti-establishment minded, like me. So it was super easy to get him to acknowledge that both parties sucks, but it's hard to get him to acknowledge the fact that Obama is bad, as I say he is. But I always pull back out like he's good enough. He don't trust the system. You know? Like now, like my dad had Trump derangement syndrome so bad, like Trump pushed him to the left, And I remember I was tweeting about that. I'm like, bro, Trump turned my dad to a socialist, bro. Because now, like, I asked my dad about this issue. He's like, yeah, I think we should get healthcare. I think we should get UBI. I think we should get paid more. And I didn't ask him. He's like, he thinks this because he hated Trump so much that he heard Trump bash socialism. He was like, shit, that shit must not be that bad then. Like, for real, that's literally how bad my dad had it. My dad had Trump derangement was bad. But I made a point before, and people thought I was lying. I said, bro, these hardcore right-wingers are doing nothing but radicalizing our community and turning people to the left. People shifted to the left on immigration and on state violence under Trump. But what were you about to say, RJ?
I was going to say, too, that the one benefit Trump had is like my family, and especially talking about my extended family, they're all about work hard for what you got, keep your head down, honor, pride, all that type of stuff. And in terms of worker rights, in terms of fighting for higher wages, fighting for higher benefits, understanding that shitty workplace tactics are undemocratic. Ever since Trump, now they're like, fuck that shit. Run me my money. Give me all this type of shit. So it's like, we have to keep that energy going. Now they're more sympathetic to really young people's struggles, which before, prior then, leading towards the end of Obama era, it was like, look where I'm at. You got to do the same thing. It's like, that's not common. So that's the biggest benefits of probably having Trump.
That's a good point, because that leads to something I've been talking about for a while that shows how dangerous the liberals and the Democratic Party is. Because after George Bush radicalized the populace into being anti-war. Then Barack Obama took over, and what happened? Barack Obama killed the anti-war movement. There was a giant anti-war movement in America that was pretty much neutered and pretty much exclusive to just the left now.
You know why, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm a fan, and then you can explain that. But then what happened? Donald Trump came in office, and then Donald Trump radicalized people to immigration, take a leftist stance on immigration. You had people saying abolish ICE, and that became in the mainstream. Then Joe Biden came in, and what happened? That's dead. Like, all of a sudden, people don't care about it no more. That's why I explained to people why the Democratic Party is so dangerous. But what was your point you were about to make earlier, RJ?
I'll make my point quick, and I'll hand it over to Sabby.
Yeah.
But the point I make is that if you look at the polls, so when Obama got elected, Black people overwhelmingly were anti-war. But as soon as Obama got in, he started taking, well, I'm not completely against war, but I'm not also completely against interventionism. So if we have to go to some place and do what we got to do to get us out of there, then I'm for that type of shit. So then you see the polls going from, well, Black people are 40% for war. They started going to 60. And that was very good for the military-industrial complex, because look at the climate back in 2008, all these populist rhetoric in terms of being anti-war, being for pro healthcare, all this different type of initiatives that the populist movement was bringing. That was very good for the military-industrial complex to see Obama slowly create this type of manufacturing of consent for the establishment. That's what I wanted to add on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, my dad has always been an independent because he never trusted either party. My mom was a Democrat, but I was surprised I was able to convince my mom to vote for Bernie. I think she liked watching Bernie in the debates. And she was just like I would be on the phone with her and we're watching the debate at the same time. And she was like, get him, Bernie, get him. So I think she liked what she saw from him during the primary debates. And she voted for Bernie, especially because of like Medicare for all. But neither one of my parents were excited about Joe Biden.
Oh, wow. I'm so lucky. Damn. I'm about to cry. Y'all about to make me cry on the stream because that's not my experience.
I know. I've been horrified hearing about your experience. I'm like, damn, I feel bad for RJ. I'm lucky that a lot of my people in my family apolitical. So my radicalization was like, oh, they just didn't hear that point of view before. They're like, oh, I didn't hear that before. But that's how most people take it.
Yeah, both my folks voted for Biden happily, and they made fun of me when Bernie lost. And then,
oh my God,
one of my lib uncles is a Nancy Pelosi Democrat, so I'm crying over here. So it's all right.
Yeah, so you have a completely different perspective from me, and I want to admit that it comes from my personal perspective. I mean, Kansas City is one of the highest percentage of Black people in America. 3 times higher than the national average. Like 30% of Kansas City is Black. So I've been around Black people, grew up around Black people. So that's why I'm able to share my experience. Cause I'm like, even though Black people vote Democrat, I'm not looking around. I'm not seeing no one in my personal life, like no one I know from work. Like I don't see no one like loving Joe Biden, and like I don't know no one who loves Nancy Pelosi. Like it's just these people are just there. Like that's how it feels in my community. Like all right, we vote Democrats, but no one likes them. They're just there. We just got to beat Republicans. That's how it is. Like, and despite us being in our state, Kansas City is blue city because we have so many Latinos and Black Americans that Kansas City is deep blue, consistently blue. But we are ruled by Black congressional caucus oligarchs, and we always have been. And people are like, why you always call out the Black Congressional Caucus? Because that's who rules me. Those are the people that we see who policy has been governing Kansas City, and the crime rate continue to go up because the poverty rate continue to go up. Our mayor Quentin Lucas has been a pain in the ass to deal with homelessness. We've been dealing with that with Casey Tenants. We had Manuel Cleaver, who's pretty much a Wall Street puppet, who came out against the Green New Deal and came out against Medicare for all. And people are like, oh, Nick, why don't you like Black Democrats? Because politics is local, and this is who's been ruining my local community. And then you look at Black communities all over the country. Those are people who've been ruining their lives too. Derek Chauvin, Democrat, Democratic era. Stop and Frisk, New York, Democrat. Skid Row, homelessness in California, 40% Black Americans, California, blue state. And people ask me why I don't like Democrats. But go ahead, Savvy.
DC, Baltimore, Atlanta, like all these, Philadelphia, all these Democrat cities that if you go into the Black neighborhoods in those cities, the schools are underfunded. They haven't really like done anything. When I go back to visit like my relatives that still live in Baltimore, nothing has improved in the community. Like you're seeing like buildings that have been like abandoned, boarded up. Nothing has changed. It's just consistently become worse and worse. And you continue to elect the same Democrat establishment politicians into office over and over again. So like when Trump said that Baltimore was what did he call it? I forget. It's something about a trash city or something like that. Might have been along with the shithole countries thing.
I think he said rat infested, didn't he?
Yeah. Like, look, here's the thing. It was like talking to like family members. They were like, look, we know what Baltimore looks like. We just didn't want to hear that from him. They didn't want him to say it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like nothing has improved. Nothing has become better. Crime consistently gets worse in Baltimore. DC has been gentrified, but see, this is the thing. They'll come in and they'll gentrify these neighborhoods, but then the Black people who grew up in those neighborhoods, they don't get to stay there and enjoy the things that have been done, the improvements of the neighborhood, because the landlords increase the rent so high that they can't afford it and they're pushed further out. So again, you really still not improving the Black community. It's not even Black community anymore. It's now become a white professional community.
Yeah, I heard about that too, because it was the summer of 2018. I was with my uncle and we were in a restaurant, and of course CNN was on the TV because this is prime Russiagate. So CNN was on the TV and it flashes up on the screen. Donald Trump calls Baltimore a city of like rat infested, and then they cued it to, because he went after Elijah Cummings too. That's what Trump did. I forgot the interactions. It's been a while. So I think what your sentiment is correct, actually, is that a lot of times Black people and people in general, when it terms about their cities, they understand how it is. They recognize it's not their fault. It's the fault of the city council people. It's the fault of the politicians there. They just don't want to hear it from Trump. So that sentiment is valid. And I do want to get back to really Jim Clyburn, because I feel like this is dangerous in which we're going up against. Jim Clyburn and also too Hakeem Jeffries, who is supposed to be the next in line for the throne when Nancy Pelosi croaks. And so the biggest problem we have right now is the narrative that the establishment is having. And this is the one they have with Nina Turner. They're like, what's his name? Jim Clyburn, his whole argument why he endorsed Shontel Brown over Nina Turner, he said, well, it wasn't because of Bernie Sanders. It wasn't because of my personal affiliation with progressives. It was simply just to ensure that the establishment voices in line with her, to ensure that we still have a diverse caucus in the Democratic Party. So that's kind of the narrative which they're going about with. And it's true, because Hakeem Jeffries is creating like this pack to really fight back against progressive insurgencies inside the Democratic Party, and by the way, the more progressives you would get into it, it kind of does affect the party leadership, because the ones who were like 4 years prior, they start getting more committee assignments and that type of stuff. So it's a very, very slow process, but just the basic minimal threat is what's kind of pissing them off. So they're trying to flood the gates early to prevent any type of this progress. So that's why really Jim Clyburn is trying to stick his neck out. And also too, I feel like he's getting a little too hungry and he feels too important right now, because he lucked up with giving his support with Biden in terms of the big manufacturing consent of how big that moment was, and it was really too small. So he feels that his endorsement makes him a kingmaker and will somehow boost Chantel Brown's chances in Iowa, when in reality, it's probably going to make Nina Turner even more popular.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna bring up you want me to bring up the article,
I have
Nick?
something I found here. That article is very relevant. I'm gonna get into that. I literally just saw this. And it doesn't really surprise me, but I still want to cover this because at the end of the day, what I tell people and what shocks, especially the liberal consciousness, is when I tell them that the Democratic Party is one of the biggest enablers of white supremacy, probably the biggest enabler of white supremacy. And I can break that down using policy. I'm not using none of the kayfabe nonsense distractions that when you talk about. Are you talking about hardcore policies? Who funding the police more? Who funding the immigration more? Joe Biden funding these agencies more. Obama deported more immigrants than Donald Trump did in his first term. So this is not me being hyperbolic. This is me actually discussing the facts here. And we had an entire, I'm going to share screen so you guys can see it. We had a giant movement fight going against our fascist police system that has been proven to be racist. And in the middle of this movement, we have Clyburn, and he's been doing this ever since the beginning of the movement. But he's ramping it up because now they see the polls. Despite them lying about it, I covered this on my show how they lied about the polls. They see the real one. They know the real numbers. They see the organization that's going on. They see the local city councils that have to debate this issue now. This is happening, and they run propaganda. I covered it on my show. Covered it last time how the numbers is flipped and wrong. But anyway, this is the role of the Black Congressional Caucus. The role of the Black Congressional Caucus is to enable white supremacy and apologize for the racism of white liberals. So the title here says, Rep. Clyburn says Democrats use to defund the police. That's not even true. But he's part of the propaganda op because the propaganda op is pretending that Biden and Democrats want to defund the police. So there's layers on top of layers on how bad this is. I'll turn to you guys very shortly. It said Clyburn is using Democrats use to defund the police is cutting the throats of the party. So he's going around with the mainstream narrative that defund the police is hurting the Democratic Party. It's bad for activists. It's bad for black people, despite all the evidence I've shown to the contrary to show why that is true. Now, I'm going to read I ain't going to dive all into it. We can just get a little quick rundown. Clyburn said Democrats use a slogan like defund the police is cutting the throats of the party in an interview with the New York Times.
You read the bottom paragraph.
Yeah, and he responded to a question. This is about when he came out with that endorsement of Chantel Brown. The bottom paragraph said, what I tried to do is demonstrate my precept and examine how we're supposed to, as a party, I'm trying to do my halfway Clyburn impersonation, when I spoke out against sloganeering. Like, yeah, I covered this when he said that. You guys remember that? When he was using the white liberal talking point, like, defund the police is just bad. It's a slogan. No, it's a policy demand. But he said, I spoke out against sloganeering like burn, baby, burn in the 1960s and defund the police, which I think cut in the throats of the party. And for the record, despite that not being true, and I explained this in the video as well, activists should not ever think about the electoral chances of a party when making demands for justice. Let me repeat that. Even if this movement costs Democrats Party seats, that does not matter. It never matters. What matters is calling for justice for our community and advocating for that. And he said, I think I know where my constituents are. No, you don't. They're against that, and I'm against that. I'll pass it to RJ. You got anything? I want to pass it to you guys before I can rant even more. But this just shows once again why Clyburn and the Black Congressional Caucus is complicit with upholding white supremacy. Do you guys have anything you want to add on to that before we go to the next article?
I think about the Clyburn part too, about his constituency and really about his power in the party. I mean, we got to think about it this way. I mean, he's the highest ranking Black congressional member, House or Senate, in the entire United States. So in terms of how that looks in terms of the Black bourgeoisie and sometimes their older Black liberal boomers, is that carries a lot of weight, sadly. And so when Clyburn speaks to them, they listen. And that's the biggest problem we had in terms of how to flip them. Because like, even with my folks, even in my family, they may agree with you on the policy. They may agree with you in the tactics. But their main premise is, I want my team to win. And so when Clyburn says that bullshit, tidal wave that way. And it doesn't matter what we say. And that's the biggest thing we have to fight against. And so Clyburn knows this. And he knows the mainstream media is incredibly biased towards Democrats. And I'm not trying to be a Republican apologist. It's just true right now. And so Clyburn knows if I play this argument, it's probably going to win for that segment of the population, which you need to keep in line in order for your electoral chances to still remain plus. Because we know the Democrats aren't going to actually argue for anything policy-wise to get their attention. It's all fear-mongering, and it's all muddying the water so they can't understand what the truth is. And so that's one of my biggest problems with Jim Clyburn. And I've covered other points like 5 minutes ago, so I'm not going to repeat it, but that's kind of my total take on it now.
I want to get Savvy's take, but I just want to emphasize once again, and this is such an important point because you notice whenever liberals talk about defund the police now, maybe a lot of people don't know, but I cover all these stories. I'll read every single story that come out about defund the police, and whenever they talk about it, like the only thing they ever bring up is electoralism. They don't talk about the justice or the merits of our ideas. If you guys don't think for now on Google defund the police and look at the stories, it always leads to that. They don't say what's right for the black community. They're like, how can we as Democrats win? And it blows my mind people fall for it. What's your thoughts, Sabrina?
Yeah, well, Jim Clyburn is horrible. I know I used to live in South Carolina. I remember how he was. The thing about him is when he talks about his constituents, I just want to make this very clear. He's not talking about people like us. He's not talking about Black people like us. He's not talking about white people like us. He's talking about the people that are affiliated with him in DC. He's talking about his corporate donors. He's talking about his pharma donors, which, by the way, he takes a lot of money from big pharma. Hence why he's not for Medicare for all. So you have to follow like the money trail, but he's not speaking about everyday people like us. He's looking out for his pocket. And in reference to the Democratic Party, I think it's gotten to the point where a lot of us are just like, we don't care what hurts the Democratic Party. We want what is going to help the people. And if that means that the Democratic Party falls, well, then it's the fault of people like Jim Clyburn who have been put into office to implement these changes to help improve our communities, especially Black communities. And the Jim Clyburn that you have in office today is not the same Clyburn that he was when he first ran for office. Again, and this is what I try to tell people and try to warn people about, even with Nina Turner. Like I said, I like Nina Turner and I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong about her. But something happens when people go to DC. They become a part of the system, or like Trump used to say, they become a part of the swamp. That's one thing that Trump was right about. They become a part of the system. And all of a sudden, all these issues that they said they were going to push on and they were going to champion for us, it goes out the window because they're thinking about their career as a politician and getting different committee seats and committee assignments and things like that. That's what happened to AOC. That's what you see happening right now to Jamal Bowman. Hell, all of the squad. So the fact that people think that if we just continue to elect Democrats, whether they are grassroots or not, the squad has proven to us they will be just like the corporate Democrats that you have in office.
Powerfully said. As always, Sabrina. I saw this cause this is the tweet. Cause my thing is like the problem. And luckily, it seemed like Nina Turner is overcoming this, so it's great for her. But it's like a lot of skepticism people have towards supporting electoral politics now is due to the progressives not fighting. So you can't blame people for not being enthusiastic about these progressive politicians now, because that's on the politician themselves and on the squad. But luckily, we seeing Clyburn and what he did massively backfire. I just want to share this quickly because I just saw it scrolling here, and then we can get in that article. I'll let you introduce it, Sabrina. But you see, Nina Turner, despite Clyburn, I like this point RJ brought up earlier, where Clyburn got cocky because of what happened with Biden and how he won South Carolina. But that was mostly establishment meddling in that election. I mean, I'm talking about the propaganda that came from the corporate media that 100% influenced the election when they gave Biden billions of dollars of free advertisement after Super Tuesday and the lead up to South Carolina. So when I say meddling, I'm talking about everything involved with there. So it wasn't just Clyburn. So he got hit, but he got his ego blew up though because everything that happened that led to that. Because another thing, Clyburn endorsement would have meant doesn't mean jack shit if Barack Obama didn't tell anyone to get out of the race. So if there's that, so there's a lot of factors that led to Biden being Bernie. But Clyburn and maybe his confidants now thinking, man, I got some weight to throw around. And now they think that him coming out against Nina Turner gonna slow down this train. I don't think it is because I'd rather Nina Turner do well against Chantel than the alternative. So I'm happy about that because she has been doing well in the polls. She's been killing in the polls. And then the Democratic Party establishment is panicking to the point where they had Nancy Pelosi come out. And then the funny, everyone on Twitter was like, I know, I was laughing about it. I'm like, all right, thanks for the kiss of death. So the party had to throw Clyburn in just in case. They're like, yo, maybe that wasn't a good idea. No, it wasn't Pelosi. Sorry, it was Hillary Clinton. It was Hillary Clinton, not Pelosi. To correct myself, it was Hillary Clinton that came out and endorsed against Nina Turner. And then when that happened, everyone was like, thanks. And then she set a fundraising record. I bring all that up because Nina's doing it again now that Clyburn coming out because people saw what Clyburn did. He saw the person that Clyburn endorsed because that ties into the article we about to talk about now, where a lot of black people are starting to realize that Joe Biden, like, bro, he really is anti-black. And I'm like, bro, I've been telling you guys this. But Clyburn came out, and this Nina tweet out yesterday. I always shared it on the stream, so I'll just read it. It's our campaign is seeing a surge in fundraising from donors all across the country. Then from now on, it's just her asking for money. But yeah, Clyburn helped with the donations, and this is people seeing through neoliberalism now. Donald Trump derangement syndrome gave neoliberalism a giant win last year, but that's not going to be sustainable, especially after they lie about $2,000 checks, especially after they lie about the public option, especially after they lie about halting deportations, especially after Biden lied about ending mandatory minimums, especially after he lied, especially I can keep going, but you know what I mean. So this is real. So that's why, like, despite all my criticism of electoralism and the progressive politicians, I'm like, I just want to see the shit lib cries now because Nina win. You're gonna see a lot of shit lib tears, and I'm for that.
And the other thing too with Clyburn is that he doesn't have the same power in a state that's not his own. He doesn't have that stronghold in a state like Ohio. And honestly, the only reason he had so much power in South Carolina, besides that being his home state, is the fact that Joe Biden was running against Trump. Nina Turner is not running against a Trump.
Can I add something to that, Sabrina? And I'll pass it right to you. I was shocked. Because I was actually canvassing for Bernie Sanders in South Carolina. And we was doing a great job flipping people. That's why we even got delegates in that state, because of what we did on the ground there. But I remember the weeks leading up to the Clyburn endorsement, people kept asking me, yo, you guys ready for when Clyburn come out against Bernie? Like, people on the ground were saying this. And then you had people in the black community, like some people I talked to, they were like, what Clyburn talking about? And I'm like, what? I literally I didn't even know that much about Clyburn. I just kept hearing his name. Oh, and this is way before he endorsed Biden. I kept hearing, and this is me on the ground in South Carolina. I kept hearing the name Clyburn, like, especially from people that know politics. They're like, yo, you know when Clyburn's gonna get involved? I'm like, well, now to the point, I was like, why everyone keep talking about fucking Jim Clyburn? And then he endorsed, and then everyone know what happened after that. And I'm like, bro, I cannot believe it was right. Like, he literally endorsed, and then another thing that's important that a lot of people didn't cover, the exit polling show that over 50% of the voters made their decision after the Clyburn endorsement. So that kind of wiped away all our work. Like, that's why I said Bernie got the delegates he got because of the people we converted on the ground. So I think people who go after Bernie organizers were like, well, what you guys do in South Carolina? Like, bro, I was there. We were flipping people left and right. No one had a ground game like we did. But then Clyburn just erased all of that, just like that. But then we got the 16 points we got in that state because of the little bit of work we did. That way it was. But sorry, Sabrina, I interrupted you. I'll let you finish your thought.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that, like, I think the thing with Clyburn, too, is that one thing people got to remember is that South Carolina has, like, the oldest electorate. And I remember that from experience when I was in college and I went to vote. I swear I was like the youngest person in line.
Wow.
And it was a long line. It was like me and like the elderly. And it was just like shocking to me, having lived in other places. But that's something I want people to keep in mind. You have in South Carolina, you have the oldest diverse electorate. And then you have a lot of people, a lot of the Black voters that are coming out are older Black, they're Black boomers. So it's hard. It was harder to get younger Black people to come out and vote. And I feel like Bernie really like gave young people that push, like, yeah, you know, this is someone who's talking about the things that we want to happen. We're going to come out and vote. But then when you arrive to the polls and you see how long the lines are, and I saw people walking, and here's another thing, people will walk away. A lot of times if the line is too long, once you pass like an hour, a lot of younger people will walk away. The older people stay there. And that's why I tell people, like, no, if you in line, stay there. Bring a snack, bring food, pee before you go, have a friend hold your spot in line if you have to leave or something like that. But the older voters do not budge. They stay and they cast their vote.
Yeah, what I'll say about this matter too, and I'll pass it back to Nick, is that Bernie committed political malpractice, but not even entertaining to get the endorsement. Like Bernie admitted saying, "Oh, well, Clyburn, he would never give me endorsement." And I'm like, even if you know he'll never give it to you, it wouldn't help to at least try, you know, and at least try to get something for it, you know, and it's pretty stupid because what did Bernie do when he was struggling before he dropped out? He put Obama in his campaign ad. He started pandering to libs. So it's like, Bernie, what the fuck, you know? So that's something that I thought was pretty stupid. And one thing I think you and Sabby both said, which is pretty interesting, is that in my eyes, there's a difference between cultural and the political. So Black people, especially in the South, you know, it's very difficult to really get elected, let alone have your own type of representation in Congress. So when you're a Black boomer, it's easier to work with maybe the Black liberal that you're not sure is on your side, but at least they're Black, you can fight against that, versus the white one. So that's the race dynamic as well. And in terms of the political, people like Jim Clyburn, I watched a lot of PBS documentaries, especially the one on Reconstruction you guys should watch. It's on YouTube. It's free. You have to do a little digging. Type in PBS American Experience Reconstruction. Jim Clyburn was in both of those videos talking about him being one of the few people in the South going to Congress representing South Carolina as well as other Southern states. So that carries a lot of weight with older Black boomers who are heavily invested in talking about the Black codes, talking about Reconstruction, talking about Jim Crow. So that does carry a lot of different weight. And that's to Jim Clyburn's personal political benefit, because we know he upholds really the white money elite scenario. But in terms of the Black boomers, they still look at him as this civil rights political hero. So that's something that we're fighting against. So he wraps himself in that type of mask of who they think he is, and he's getting away with it. So that's really the cultural versus political dynamic. So they feel, hey, we want to stick with this guy, even though we may have some disagreements with him, but he's someone that looks like us, so we can hold him accountable versus to someone else who may not look like us and a little bit worse. That's just something I encounter because I do have family in the South, and we talk about that.
Yeah, that's a very good point, RJ. And I want to add this one last thing, because I think this is a very important point. Because as someone that was on the ground in South Carolina, I can push back against a lot of the bullshit that I hear in the mainstream discourse about South Carolina and the Black vote. You know, with the liberal propaganda you hear about all the time, Black voters rejected a progressive message. Black voters rejected socialism. I can tell you guys without a shadow of doubt, and I covered a story that showed how Black people are leading the charge of anti-capitalist sentiments. So that backs that up. But I can tell you guys, when I was on the ground, even though Black boomers heavily went for Joe Biden, and even the few conversations I had, because I did have a conversation with a few, I can tell they were more affluent, older Black people that I couldn't get into support Bernie. And I remember I had one conversation with a lady she was like, I like Joe Biden. But then in that conversation, I got her to agree with me on the policies, though. And then they also said, even though I probably won't vote for Bernie, I still like him. So there's also a mistake. People assume that just even because they vote for Biden, that they are not progressive or they're not supportive of Bernie. Because I talked to a lot of these older people. And then even the people like, I don't know, I don't want to disclose who I'm going to vote for right now. But yeah, I hear you. I do like Bernie. He seems like he got good ideas. So like you talk to Black people and you actually talk about healthcare. You talk about increased wages. And I brought up in the war. I had a strong foreign policy picture as well. And people are like, yeah, all this stuff makes sense. So even though so you talk to Black voters in general, that's how they are. So that's how someone who actually talked to voters, I talked to countless, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And throughout my 7-8 weeks I was canvassing. So I can tell you guys why I actually saw there. So go ahead, RJ, and then we go back to Sabrina.
Yeah, so real quick, like when I was talking to my family about my progressive views, and by the way, when in 2018 during our family reunion talk about politics, I was borderline liberal slash sock dem, and I was way farther to the left than them even back then. Just want to preface that. And so even now, talking to my folks about Bernie, about AOC, and the progressive squad members, at first when I would talk about them, they would say they're far left radicals, like they're crazy. No, we can't have them. And then listening to my politics and knowing I'm way farther left than even them, they're like, damn, Bernie's not that radical at all. He's actually centrist in the eyes of the world. I'm like, insert Nick meme. Like, now you finally get it. And so that's the crazy dynamic. And the thing that struggles with us is that they don't recognize this until after the fact, until after the political nucleus has been baked, until really after all the political advantages have been made. And so then you kind of have to hit the reset button and try again. If you're doing this electorally, you would try it again the next 2 years. But in terms of the grassroots organizing, that's actually even better, because now that they know, you can flip them more to the left, saying, well, this is the part of the American imperialism machine that you would disagree with. Here's why the state is screwing you over in terms of critical race theory. Here's how the wars abroad are affecting you at home. So if you branch it out and keep going, it opens their mind more. And I want you to realize that some people, as in your family, whether they're like Black liberals or whatever, you're only going to get them to the left on some issues. Sometimes they're never really going to be with you on the left, but they'll agree with you about some issues. So I would keep talking to them about those some issues, because like my dad, capitalist to his core, like capitalist to his bones, like Liz Warren would say. So I'm never going to get him to be a socialist, but I can get him to agree with these foreign wars are fucked up. I can get him to understand that this current iteration of capitalism abusing unions in the entire workplace is fucked up. Like I went from him saying, oh, they should be working, taking advantage of the state system in terms of and unemployment is fucked up, to, hey, I don't blame them. Like, hey, this is some pretty fucked up shit, not getting paid a lot of money. So it is doable. I think we on the left too, like I'm guilty of it. We want to take someone on the right and just yank them left. And you get a lot of success stories, but sometimes you have to look at issue by issue, what you can bring people on, open their eyes, and then it is their chance to know if they want to move all the way to the left or not. That's just my commonality in my family, which I have to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, that brings me to this Joe Biden article, which is what Nick and what we were all talking about. So it says that Joe Biden in the age of Black exhaustion. After saving Biden's campaign from defeat, Black people had hoped for some relief from the constant racism and attacks. That hasn't happened. Nick, you want to talk about this a bit?
Yeah, and I'll just fix the dimensions real quick. It's just on my side. 1 second. But yeah, I want to talk about this and bring this up because scroll up just a little bit at the very top. I think we got the top now. Because I have been covering the Biden administration the same way I covered the Trump administration at the very beginning. All right, you can start there and then just slow scroll. That'd be fine. It was obvious. Anyone who paid attention and was deeply serious over the course of one election cycle, you can tell. Actually, if you don't mind, I'm actually put up. You can stop the share screen. I have an idea.
Cool.
I have an idea. Because I have something I want to talk about first. Cause I think this ties in. Cause I have it put up here anyway, so I actually didn't. So let's do it that way. I'll start with this. It was obvious for anyone who actually paid attention that Joe Biden would making promises just so he can defeat Trump. Defeating Trump was the number one priority, no matter what. And there's been stories how there was dark groups, and you had all these celebrity webs that came together, and they actually wrote an article about this, and they praised it. They're talking about the social dark web that led to Trump's defeat. It was actually an article in the New York Times. And it's pretty much a group of celebrities, activists, reporters. They colluded like, all right, we got to defeat Trump no matter what. So when I saw Joe Biden, Jim Crow Joe, saying stuff that we're going to cancel student loans, that we're going to implement a public option, I'm looking, and everyone knows this, that politicians lie to get votes. I thought we knew this. I thought that was like the first thing you learn when you get into politics. But apparently, you had people who call themselves serious leftists. We even had fucking Voss quoting his platform as a reason to vote for him. I'm like, are you guys new to politics? You guys didn't listen to a guy who lied about being arrested in South Africa, protesting with Nelson Mandela, the guy who lied about being in part of the civil rights movement, the guy who was lying about his record as Bernie Sanders was calling it out on the debate stage. Bernie Sanders called him out for advocating for cutting Social Security, and then millions of people, Biden lied about that. So that guy who's willing to lie about all that, you guys gonna believe he's gonna do this stuff, despite the fact he have 100 billionaire donors? How does that never made sense to me? So most people who've been following me as a commentator so far know how much slack I took, because I said there's no way you're gonna get me as a young black man to vote for the guy who built the system of oppression that has destroyed our community.
And I think,
go ahead, RJ.
I think I'll say this, I'll let Sabs go. I think what you're kind of underestimating a little bit is the power that the cultural game that the Democratic Party played in. Like, they really played to our heartstrings in terms of, you know, the old school collective roots and really the kumbaya type factor. Like when Obama was out there campaigning for Biden, he was telling black people, look, all you got to do is vote for Joe. He'll handle it. We'll vote Trump out. That's why Biden was doing all these, like, saying, hey, I'll decriminalize marijuana. I'll do all this type of, I'll put a black woman on the Supreme Court. I'll have a black woman as VP. It'll look like you, just struggle with me right now to help me run this campaign and whatever you want afterwards. And so it's like, don't challenge me now, but challenge me later. And that brought light to the progressives saying push Biden left after. So I think really that part is what made it difficult and really surprising for a lot of leftists, or even for sometimes black liberals, to vote for Joe Biden, is because it kind of gave them comfort. And people thought, well, the Democrats obviously learned their lesson from 2008. And I was guilty of it, because I thought, okay, Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, yeah, he doesn't want to be the guy to just get the job and then lose his seat in Congress with a cut. So, and by the way, Democrats don't care, because they realize, hey, we're here no matter till the cows come home. Other progressives, other blue dogs, they rely on us. So we're the machine. And so I think the black community as a whole, we kind of took it at face value that, oh, the Democrats have learned their lesson, but in reality they haven't. So that's kind of the problem that we have, because we know what happened in 2008. And a lot of times in the black community, we're told, hey, vote, vote, vote. You know what happened under the Obama administration? But it's almost like we're putting all this earnest and shame amongst the community of black people, not at the machine, which screwed us over. Yeah. So that's the type of thing. It's a combination of guilt, and it's a combination of, okay, they've probably changed, and this is something we could work with. Because even in my family, which I've seen, it's like, when I'm very critical of Biden, it's a lot of excuses. It's in terms of Kamala Harris, I'm not approaching my mom with that. She likes Kamala, she's pro-woman, so I don't have that conversation. So that's kind of how I feel about my family based on what I've seen.
Yeah, anything you want to add to that, Sabrina?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I posted a tweet, this was a while back, and I said, name one thing that Obama did for black people. And like that tweet went crazy, like all over like Twitter and stuff. But it was funny because there was a guy that commented and he said, damn, not one positive thing in the comments.
They can't do it. They can't do it. That's very revealing. That's funny. I gotta look at that tweet. That's hilarious. But yeah, they can't do that. And that's why I love the point that you would bring up, RJ, and that's why I have the rhetoric that I have. I mean, you can't hold back. You gotta go with a sledgehammer. I don't know how RJ parents is. I don't want to speak, but it's like when I talk to like black people, like I'm not insulting their intelligence. I'm assuming they know everything I do. When I talk about foreign policy, like with people think you shouldn't with people, but people are inherently anti-imperialist. And I got a theory. That's why they tell people not to talk about it, because I think they don't want people to discuss how. Because I tell people, and one of the easiest way I got my friends to not like Obama, when I was like, bro, Obama is a criminal. Like I told him how he bombed Doctors Without Borders. I tell him all the people that he killed by a drone death. And you bring that up, and based on my experience, it's more anecdotal more than anything. In my experience, it's like, bro, I didn't know that. Damn, he fucked up. And I'm like, yeah, he just like George Bush. And they're like, he just like George Bush. Like, yeah, and I'll back it up. And that's how I win people over. It's a process, but you can't hold back. You gotta go all in. But it's really hard. And I can speak with my dad. Like my dad, he's intellectually honest enough to like he will admit like, yeah, that's messed up. That's messed up. But then he like, but still Republican like obstructionism, and he tried. Like he still think Obama was trying the best he can. And I remember I got to the point where at one point he was like, well, you can't expect Obama to do all that stuff because he get his ass killed if you trying to take. If you trying, he literally said that. At that point, I knew I reached him, so I let off, and I was like, yeah, he would have, and because I think that's true. So that's how my experience been. Now to go to the rest of this article, because I think that's a good way to set this up. I'll share it so you guys can see it. Because now a lot of people we about 6 months in, because there was the liberals, they made their excuses where they all kept saying, "Oh, you guys got being too hard on Biden. He just got in," and that only worked for so long. It never worked on real leftists. But if you actually like, even casuals, we be like, "All right, 6 months. You can't keep saying this." So now this is the article here. After saving Biden's campaign from defeat, black people had hoped for some relief from constant racism and attacks, and that hasn't happened. Black people delivered the presidency to Joe Biden. His campaign was an embarrassing structure fire until black voters in South Carolina showed up to save it. I also want to read this article because I actually do see some errors in this. And anyone who watched my old show, I used to cover these articles because I think it's also an important case study to examine how they use propaganda on people, like even like subtle propaganda, where they say like false truths or whatever. One thing that immediately stands out to me, as you see here, skimming this first article, did they mention that Barack Obama told everyone to get out of the race? They never do, because that's a very crucial mission, and just that mission actually says a ton, whether you believe it or not. But anyway, let me continue. That's just the first thing I noticed upon reading this. This first article is them kind of highlighting how they say you had all these candidates. They understood correctly over the objection over younger black pundits. Like me, I don't want to speak on this guy. I don't know this writer that well. But who does this sound like? Sorry, I know I'm talking like you guys can interject whenever you want, but I'll just kind of frame this article. But go ahead, RJ. Like, just interrupt me because I talk a lot when I present. So, well, you guys go ahead.
What's interesting is I see in the middle of here, it says, I'm going to cut after you say pundits. It says, this is a deeply racist country and that a majority of white people will vote for Republican, as a majority of them in every presidential election since Nixon honored the Southern strategy. Now, what is the Southern strategy? Now, the South, prior to 1964, after the realignment, it was completely controlled by Democrats. It flipped after 1964 and 1965 Voting Rights Act, when the Southern Dixiecrats flipped from Democrat to Republican. And ever since then, with the Nixon presidency, the Southern strategy, and it goes on to explain about it, is that they saw Biden as the candidate to best situated to appeal to the minority of white voters who couldn't abide Trump's bigotry, but couldn't stand his incompetence. And with the majority of assists from Kamala Harris to shore up the underrepresented. So the idea, and it kind of started back in 2008, which actually didn't help. Like even Mike Gravel, before he died, said that adding Joe Biden to the ticket wouldn't actually do anything, because even white working class people didn't really have respect for Joe Biden. He was a faker, he didn't understand it. So the mentality of the 2020 election from the black mindset is, yeah, we know Joe Biden's not a spring chicken or he's not as clean as everything. But in a way, Joe Biden was a better alternative for black people's interests, because you may have some voters who may not agree with the bigotry of Donald Trump, but they don't like his incompetence. So they're saying you could get those majority of white voters on your side, while at the same time, you would be for Biden because, Biden was basically the white guy who took a backseat to a black guy who became president, which in the eyes of the black community is very rare you would see that happening. So that's kind of the mindset that you would see. And the shocking part for me about that is that argument is rich in Democratic Party history. I've said this many times on various different shows, and even on my own, that the Democratic Party narrative is, okay, you find a liberal, yada, yada, whether become president-elect or vice president-elect, and then whoever your running mate would have to be the exact opposite of you in order to, what they call, clean up and shore up the Democratic Party base. And so what we know now in 2020 is that Kamala Harris, by being the VP, she's the black face, she's all these different types of minority groups behind her, it's not working either way. Like Joe Biden has not garnered support among really in terms of if we're staying on the politician side, he's not garnered support from many Republicans, and he really hasn't garnered support from many Republican voters as much, except for the ones in the establishment. And in terms of Kamala Harris, she adds nothing to the Biden administration in terms of garnering more support for Black people and even Asian people. So that's the biggest problem you have.
You have anything you want to add, Sabrina, before I move on? I got a lot to say about this, but go ahead, Sabrina. You want to add anything else?
Oh no, it was just interesting to me. In that second paragraph,
let me know
where they said,
the
right here, it says that they saw Biden as the candidate best situated to appeal to the minority of white voters who could abide Donald Trump's bigotry but couldn't stand his incompetence. That's just interesting to me because that just goes to show you it was never really about us. Yes. It was about him trying to win over those white voters and him trying to also win over white voters in the Atlanta suburbs.
What I also see interesting about this, and I think it's still really important to get news from different perspectives because, like, to me, when I read this, the propaganda jumps out so much. And honestly, I don't even think that bad on this writer because skimming through this article, it seems like he was like one of the people that was critical of Biden, but I don't want to assume, but maybe one of the people like, oh, we got to vote for him at the end of the day, though. Because he framed it as he understood that Biden had these issues. But check this out, and this is what I want to correct, and this is what my point of view is. Let me see if I can find exactly where it is.
Before you find it, I do.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, RJ. You can chime in.
But this will be really quick, and I'll hand it back to you.
No, go ahead.
So
I'm talking too much.
What the Democratic Party strategy was, it was a continuation. So it's almost like they wanted to break up the Southern strategy, so they can't be used against them, but then they could use it as a tool against the Republican Party. And also, too, in terms of what Sab said, in terms of Joe Biden trying to go after suburban white voters, this is something that the Democrats have been trying to do since really 2012. They used it in 2012 for Obama to stay president, but they tried doing it in 2016 to help Hillary become president, but it was an epic failure. There's a famous clip of Chuck Schumer. He says, for every blue-collar Democrat we will lose in Western PA, we gain 2-3 moderate Republicans in the suburbs. You can repeat that in Ohio, in Illinois, in Wisconsin. So it's that famous speech that Chuck Schumer gives. That's the entire Democratic Party strategy. And so we become the ones who brings them over the top. That's not as primary, not really as a group that they want to rely on, but they want to go after really the minority of white voters to bring in the coalition, which they believe is a better electoral power. So that's kind of what I wanted to add on.
So I gotta highlight this, and then we can move on to the next topic. Give you guys thought after this, because I think this framing here is very interesting. I'll put it back on quickly. I didn't want to keep our face away too long, but this is the last part from this article I want to cover, and then we get our final thoughts on this. This is like this article. Like when you read it, like the facts is decent, and the fact that he even bringing this stuff up is cool. But this is not black leftist framing. And let me tell you what black leftist framing is. You see, first I'm going to read it out. Not all of this is Biden's fault. The For the People Act would nullify many state laws as suppressing the black vote, and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act are stalled in the Senate because a few Democrats lack the courage to do what necessary to bring that to Biden's desk. So, 2 is the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, a bare minimum attempt to ban some forms of police brutality. Biden cannot deliver on some of his legislative promises as long as Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, and various whites-only problem solvers caucus refuse to tear down the policies of white supremacy. Because I do want to share both of these. And let's read the second article, and I'll get you guys started, because I want to tell you guys how I would frame this as a black leftist. But some of this is Biden's fault. So this gets into the part where he actually does blame Biden. While a Democratic-controlled Congress refuses to pass legislation, Biden could affect policy at a federal level today if he wanted. He could ban excessive force tactics. They already did this. Well, anyway, let's show one flaw in this article already. But once again, I can go all day. He could recall military equipment that had been gifted to local forces. Once again, what I will correct here is he's not bringing up the fact that he actually increasing the flow over Trump.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that's the black leftist framing. Stop buying to the red blue gang because Trump, he's actually to Trump's right on this. Anyway, let me continue. He could do something about ICE, abolish it, disarm it, retrain it, punishment for human rights violations, literally any reform. See, this is the problem. See, he talking about the right things, but he's not framing it right. So he made it seem like Biden, he would love to do something, but Biden is funding ICE more than Trump. That's how you say it. To shatter the cognitive dissonance of the two-party system. Anyway, okay, let me finish that paragraph. I'll probably read all of it first, but it's hard to get through. Literally any reform is better than what we have now. Biden has released a comprehensive plan to deal with domestic terrorism. See, he didn't even bring that up. I was hoping that he didn't even bring up the fact that Biden is funded more than Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Biden released a comprehensive plan to deal with domestic terrorism. Oh my God. So he don't even cover that right. See, that's 2 paragraphs. You see how many times I got stopped? He not only is he releasing this comprehensive plan, he going after socialists, anti-capitalists, activists. He didn't use it to go after Black Lives Matter. That's what you should be framing it as. This is Biden expanding state power to go after black people, the left, and working class movement. So I'll pass it to RJ and Sabrina because this is the last thing I want to sum up here. So this is why I want to highlight this. This is why I think it's important to read these articles. This guy, he seemed to be left of the average black liberal, but he's still not a black leftist. Because what he's saying is like, oh, there's all these obstacles that get in Biden's way. He seemed like he want to stop it, but no. If he wanted to get it done, they would get it done. The filibuster did not stop anything the establishment didn't want. And also, it's under the assumption that he's not implementing pro-white supremacy policies. So you see the framing, and I talk about this on my show, where I said my issue with the Democratic Party is not what they don't do for our community, because that's one problem. My issue with the Democratic Party is what they do to our community. So it's not like, oh, I'm just some guy complaining because I'm not getting all my rainbows. I'm mad because they're funding the police state. I am mad because he funded multiple genocides. Did they talk about the genocides there? Anyway, I'll pass it to you guys there. But I hope you guys understand what I'm saying here. Because even though that's a good article in the general, because he actually seemed like a black writer who want to challenge the Biden administration, they are still held within the constraint of corporate media, where they can't really still call it how it is. What's your guys' thoughts? Let's start with Sabrina.
You know, his framing, like you said, it makes it seem like, okay, he's pointing out the things that he feels that Biden needs to improve on, but he's also saying basically that it's not Biden's fault, that this is out of his control. So when you frame it that way, then that's where liberals will come in and say, see, you know, Biden can't help it. Like he's only been in office for such and such days. Like, what do you expect him to do? And I want to remind everybody that think of all the things that Trump did the first week that he became president. He didn't wait on some of these things. He just signed things and said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And that's part of the reason why some people like Trump so much, because they felt like he was a fighter, that he wasn't just going to go along with what, you know, Washington like wanted him to do. Then you get someone in there after him like Biden, and Biden is just so passive. And this is the similarity with him and Obama. I felt like both of them were just very passive. And at that point, you're just occupying a seat. Meanwhile, you know, you're telling everybody that you have representation and you have so many Black people a part of your administration. And behind closed doors, you're like bombing like brown people countries abroad, just like Obama did. And so for me, when I look at Joe Biden, and unless something changes, and I don't think it will, I just see a passive president. And again, he had all these promises when he was running for president. None of these things are happening, which we all here knew that he wasn't going to do it anyway. But this is why somebody like Trump could win again. Because you get the Democrats put people in there, they say they're for the working people. And who do they screw over when they're in office? The working people. They don't even want to give us a $15 minimum wage, you guys. There are still people in this country making $7.50 an hour and trying to pay their rent. And most people can't pay their rent on that. So they end up having 2 jobs. So these are the people. This is the party that says they're for the working people. So when have they really been for us? I haven't seen the Democratic Party really be for the working people in a long time. They're just for corporate donors and establishment. That's really who they're working for. They're working for all the donors that have donated to their campaign, whether it's big pharma, whether it's, you know, the oil industry, whether it's Honeywell in some of these countries or some of these companies, they fund military industrial complex. But you wouldn't know that unless you actually research those companies. So I encourage everybody to follow the money trail. And if you go to Open Secrets you can Google it, you can look up all of these candidates, you can look up the politicians, and you can see who their donors are, and then follow the money trail so you know what cause they're actually supporting versus what they say when they run for office.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I found this very interesting part of the article. I want to get RJ reaction to this, and then Savvy can finish, and then I want to get to the question that we got earlier. But this is the last part because I do once again I'm not like bagging on this dude because I think this part he comes out pretty. I think he does pretty well. I'll read it because I already shared it plenty. So he said black people are under attack in this country. And those attacks has only seemed to intensify since Republican bigots lost the presidential election. But you wouldn't know it if you only listened to Biden and other white Democratic leaders. I heard them give I heard them give more of a full-throated defense of Liz Cheney than Ilhan Omar this year. See, he also leaving out the fact that the Democratic Party actually spoke out against Ilhan. Just another omission. But about a year from now, Biden and the Democrats will be back in the black and brown communities. Now, this talking about what Sabrina was just bringing up. Actually, I'll share it so you guys see it because it's about 2 articles. I was just being lazy. But I want to get RJ back to this, and then Sabrina can finish up, and I know we got a question we can address. So this is what I was reading. But about a year from now, Biden and the Democrats will be back in the black and brown communities begging for votes. They'll tout the vaccine and the stimulus bill, which certainly helped people of color along with everyone else. But they'll have no record of achievements that specifically protected black and brown people from the unrelenting attacks we face from white wing lawmakers, police, and judges. I gotta learn to let stuff go. But that's not... They're framing it like the right wing is responsible for this. The Democrats fund the police. But anyway, I don't want to get on a tangent.
Well, they're not framing it in a right wing. They're not framing it in a right wing way. They're framing it in a black liberal boomer way. Like that type of language is what I hear a lot in my family, sadly.
Yeah, so I try to give him credit too at the end too, but I still find stuff that annoys me. Like that kind of annoys me because he's framing it as if it's like one problem. Like even if he's talking about white liberals here, he's still framing like black liberals are not responsible for this. Like the black Democrats are not. So that's a problem. Anyway, I'm trying to move on. But I got so much problems here. But it also tiring. Black people are required to invest sweat, tears, and often blood merely to participate in this democracy. And when we do, when we literally save this country from a deranged cult of know-nothing authoritarians, both parties are, but I get your point, the reward is watching our most desperate concerns get shunted to the side so white people can feel normal again. See, I give him credit for that part. See, I was trying to give him some credit, but I give him, this is a decent paragraph. I'll give him credit on. That's a good one. That's the only paragraph I can get through without really getting too much complaints. But anyway, I want to get RJ's thoughts on this, on the finish here, and then Sabrina can wrap it up, and then we move on to the Kyle question.
Yeah. So about like the argument that it's the fault of the senators, the Democratic senators, these Congress people. That's like, yeah, sure. But at the same time, if you're relying on Joe Biden, the person you voted for, someone saying that, and him saying he'll give you all these things, and you saying, okay, we got to rally around Joe Biden. We have to look at past Democratic presidential history here. Like, one, in order to get something out of these Democratic presidents, you have to push them. And two, if a president, especially a Democratic president, wants something, they get it. And if you look at the Senate right now, the Senate is 50-50. Now, Chuck Schumer, he's the Senate majority leader, air quotes, but he has no power in terms of must-pass legislation. Because we all know if there's anything remotely smelling progressive, Republicans are dead. It's dead on arrival. They get 50 no votes. So essentially, Chuck Schumer has no power in the Senate. And so who gets that power? Well, it's Vice President Kamala Harris because she breaks the tie. But who tells Vice President Kamala Harris what the fuck to do in the Senate and how to vote? Joe Biden. So Joe Biden not only controls the executive branch, but he controls the Senate in terms of budget, in terms of reconciliation bills, in terms of stimulus bills, okay, in terms of now really the Supreme Court picks and the federal judges. Because remember, Harry Reid in 2014, he lowered the threshold needed to appoint Supreme Court justices. There used to be 60 votes. Republicans would filibuster every time. Democrats were tired of the filibuster, so they lowered it from 60 to 51. Okay. Now the problem you have is that in the Senate, you have some conservative Dems who may not like someone being progressive in the Senate. So now what you got to do is thank you, Democrats, for fucking yourself over. Same thing with the district judges. And Biden got caught allowing a lot of these Trump stooges to keep their seats on various states in the country. So that's what's kind of fucked up. And so if Biden wants something done, it's Biden the one that's going to get it if he actually wants it. The problem is he doesn't. He just used it as campaign rhetoric, like you all said on this panel today, to get elected and to trick white people into voting for him. When it comes down to it, he doesn't. And the reason why is because look at Joe Manchin. Senator Joe Manchin is a Biden Democrat. He endorsed Joe Biden in 2008 when he ran for presidential election. And if you look at many of these documentaries back in 2008, Joe Manchin worked with another senior Republican to draft many of these stimulus bills back in 2008 for relief, working with Joe Biden. And even Barack Obama said, look, Joe, just fix it for me, Joe, fix it for me, Joe. And Joe Manchin and Joe Biden were integral in that process as well. So you can't tell me that you're surprised that Joe Manchin has all this power now. Joe Manchin just said, hey, look, bro, you're 50-50, sucks to suck for you, but I'm gonna use my power. And it's always been like that. It's just Kyrsten Sinema now knows that, hey, if he's powerful saying no, I am too. And it takes two to tango. So that's why they get even more powerful. Now you see people like Dick Durbin and some of these other dumbass motherfuckers now want to flex their muscle. And it's like, no one gives a fuck about you, but they know that, hey, if three of us come together, now we have a caucus in the Senate. See, one is annoying, two or more, we have a problem. So that's why Joe Biden uses this now as an excuse not to do anything, because one, he never wanted to do it in the first place. The only time the establishment feared about having a passive progressive policy was the $15 minimum wage. That's why they used, the Senate parliamentarian, that excuse. But now when you have more conservative Democrats like Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, Dick Durbin, many of these others, Joe Biden's now incentivized not to do anything. He doesn't have to, he just blame them. And they don't mind being hated because they get off on that shit and it helps them. And you know Republicans are going to be for it. That's why this bullshit bipartisan thing that just came out, and Biden, once again, biting his own foot, exposing that, hey, some of these things I'm a lot less hardline for, it's going to be impossible. So that's just my take on that.
Sav, you got anything you want to end with that? And you got anything you want to add? I'll give you the last one on this segment, and then we move on to the question that Ghana asked for RJ earlier.
Yeah, I agree with everything that RJ just said. It's like the people who are supposed to be the ones that are progressive are actually like, they're being passive. And then you have people like Joe Manchin that are actually being more aggressive, that are actually fighting for these things instead of the people like the squad that we elected to go in and fight for those things. The squad has become passive, and it's disappointing, I think.
Well said. So, we got a question earlier on. I said we was gonna get to it because I wanted to cover that. That about an hour of hard hitting black issues that we covered there. We pretty much did a whole roast of Jim Clyburn, and I can go all day about why I have issues with the Black Congressional Caucus. My first piece I literally wrote was about that. I already knew what I was gonna write when I started my Substack. It was embrace MLK, reject Barack Obama, while we must reject the scourge of neoliberalism. So I go in long detail there, and we discuss this a little bit more. But Ghana was asking RJ, because I know RJ was discussing this. And I see Sabrina had a very interesting take on this as well. But I'm going to start with RJ, and then I'm going to get Sabrina and what your tweet said earlier. They was asking about what your thoughts on the whole Jimmy Dore situation, because this thing is not going away. Like, it will not go away. So what's your thoughts on this, RJ?
So my thoughts.
Go ahead.
So my thoughts on this is that Kyle's in a sticky situation first off. I mean, he works for TYT. He's affiliated with Anna, Jank, and many of these TYT people who he admits he's friends with. But he's also friends with Jimmy Dore, who is also ex-TYT, and he hates fucking TYT. So he's in the middle. And the reason why I want to say that is because anytime I see Twitter beefs on my timeline, I'm always hesitant to entertain because I know my mention is going to be destroyed. So I do sympathize with that. But on the other hand, when you have a situation like this in which Aaron Matei, an award-winning journalist, gets smeared by TYT, called an Assad apologist and all these different dirty language saying that he gives apologia to dictators is vehemently false, what they did. And so the argument I have with Kyle Kullinski in this instance is that he said that he didn't want to weigh in, that he believed at face value, many of these critiques, whether it's at Jimmy Dore or at TYT, they were so obvious that it didn't need his input. But I do feel like, one, if you just, during the time, let's say, hey, look, on this fact, policy-wise, because by the way, a lot of the personal attacks, okay, he can stay out of it. I'm not saying he should involve himself. But in terms of the politics side and policy side, he should have came out with a video saying, hey, this part that Jimmy said was right, this part was wrong. Hey, this part that Anna said was right, this part was wrong. Hey, this part Aaron said right, this was wrong. Hey, anything TYT, this part they said, this part was wrong. It would have really saved his ass later, because that's called putting the pin on the balloon. You're slowly letting the air out so it wouldn't pop and explode all over you. The problem with Kyle's end is now he's forced to write something about it, because yes, in that video he talked about the Syria issue, but it wasn't in the realm of context and what the beef was about in terms of TYT versus Jimmy Dore. They were talking about the OPCW report. They weren't talking about Biden's current bombing of Syria. They were talking about an issue that happened under the Obama administration that TYT still won't fucking let go because they're idiots. And that's the situation that was happening. In terms of the entire video, and I'm going to save the part for Savvy. So I'm going to go in the middle and towards the end. I'll let Savvy take over after me. One part I thought was pretty interesting is that Kyle did show that Jimmy apologized for his behavior in terms of making that joke towards Anna, saying, hey, Anna, nice news skirt. Everybody laughed. She felt embarrassed. He bought her a gift. He apologized, and he did it on air. Okay. But they completely left out the misconduct in terms of what TYT was doing behind the scenes. Let's be fair here. Like, TYT came after Jimmy first, and Jimmy then defended himself and then went after TYT. So you have to show both sides of that story. And so he's leaving that out, I believe, intentionally, saving TYT's ass. So that's my personal opinion on that. Now, the second part I want to talk about is basically Kyle saying, well, the arguments a lot with TYT in terms of them saying, oh, we take corporate money somehow, and they have these agreements where like the money isn't contingent on how you cover news. And he says, well, TYT doesn't do that. And it's like, what the fuck? And so that's what's really confusing about that situation. And the last part is about Jeffrey Katzenberg, which is a DNC donor giving. That's the deal we're talking about, which Jake Huber took $20 million. And Kyle Kullinski admits that. And in a clip, it shows Jimmy Dore back in around 2013, which I thought was pretty interesting because I never seen that clip before. So that's something I do want to see Jimmy Dore respond to. I'm pretty sure he'll have a comment on that. But because if you look at the context of now, Jimmy Dore always now says, hey, I was against this in terms of Jeffrey Katzenberg sending DNC donor money is terrible. But back then, it kind of seems like Jimmy Dore in that context was kind of taking the centrist route. It's almost like he almost either he knew what was going on, but since he worked for TYT, he couldn't blatantly be against it, or he didn't know what was going on, but wanted to cover for Jank because he didn't know the entirety of the situation. So that's one clip I want to see Jimmy respond to. But other than that, like, I feel like at the same time, Kyle in that video wanted to, he said at first, yeah, he wanted to give his opinion about it, but at the same time covers him personally, while also in the lens of making sure that both sides are happy. And what I've learned is that when you try to make both sides happy, it makes everyone unhappy. So that's just my quick take. And I'm gonna pass it to Sabrina. She'll tell you she'll give you more details. She's gonna go fire right now. I'm loving it.
Oh boy, yeah. So you guys know, like, I tried to tell you guys about Kyle. I tried to tell you, I'm like, this dude is fake. There's something iffy about this dude. I watched for, some time. And I do want to say, like, in the beginning, when I first started watching Secular Talk, I actually had a lot of respect for that show. I just want to be very clear. Like, that was one of the first shows I started watching with leftist independent media. But I did notice along the way that a lot of times when Kyle would report on like data about Black people, the data was incorrect. When he would report on things about Black issues, his framing was off. The things that he said wasn't right. When he came out and said he was against reparations and that he didn't think that had much to do with Bernie's campaign, or it should be an important part of Bernie's campaign. As a Black person, I knew like that was a big mistake. When he came out and said defund the police, yeah, I get it, but it's not popular. Again, I was like, that was a big mistake. And then, along the way, it's like you just start to, like, for me as a Black leftist, I was like, this dude is totally out of touch with the Black community and what Black people really want. And I started to feel like he was not talking to Black leftists. He was speaking specifically to white leftists. So I chose to stop watching the damn show. Now, as time has gone by, other people have sent me things and DM me stuff. And so the whole situation that RJ just explained to you guys between like him and Jimmy and not defending Aaron Matei, I want to play a clip from that video because there's something that he says in this clip, and I'm going to tell you why his statement is problematic. And this is what I tweeted about earlier. So I'm going to share my screen.
I wish I had a cup of tea right now. I'd be drinking that right now.
All right. So let me set this up because basically what he's about to talk about here is he's going to compare his situation to when people didn't come and defend him a couple years ago to him not defending Aaron Matei. So listen what he says, and I hope there's no ads coming up.
Scandal about my old tweets when Mike Cernovich dug them up and wrote.
Oh, hold on. All right.
To my, scandal about my old tweets when Mike Cernovich dug them up and wrote an article calling me a sexist and a racist and all the negative things in the book. Nobody defended me. And listen, I'm totally fine with that. I never held a grudge over it. I never thought like, how dare, all my friends in lefty circles not come out of the woodworks and, put their neck on the line for me. I just thought, listen, this is par for the course. I don't expect everybody to come. I'm not entitled to other people going out there and responding for me. I just thought, hey, it is what it is. This isn't high school. We don't have cliques. People could think whatever they want to think, and I'll handle it on my own. And it was the exact same thing with Crystal when it came to that article that Nathan J. Robinson wrote not that long ago, where he basically argued that she's emboldening Nazism because she does a show with Sagar, who's populist right, and populist right is like what the Nazis were, so therefore you're being like too soft on the right and too soft on Tucker Carlson, and you're basically like emboldening Nazis and stuff. It was a silly article. I don't think Nathan's arguments were very good, but, Crystal fucking hated that shit. She read it and she's like, fuck this shit, and nobody defended her. So, I don't think she cares. She was upset by the article, but she's not mad at other lefties for not, like, immediately coming out there and responding, because it is what it is. It's not that big a deal. We all go through this shit online. People always say shit about us, and we could all have our positions on it, but it's not like, we're the Justice League rushing to everybody's defense at every moment. I watch this stuff unfold like everybody else watches it unfold, and sometimes I just look at it and I'm like, well, that's dumb, and I move along, and I don't, do a whole monologue or whatever over it. So anyway, listen, I'm not trying to make an excuse. What happened to Aaron was wrong. But I think that's so obvious that I'm like, really? You need me to say it? Like, you don't know what my...
I got to pop out because I got to comment. So here's the thing here. First of all, Kyle is full of shit. And I'm going to tell you why. The comment that he made about nobody coming to Crystal's defense, that's actually not true. And other people have already called this out on Twitter. There actually were people that came to Crystal's defense about that situation. Now, to the former one, which deals with his situation, I want to make a distinct difference here. People not coming to Kyle's defense about his old tweets, the shit was true. Okay? The guy who attacked Kyle, he had screenshots of those old tweets. And by the way, I didn't find out about this till last year. I wasn't even on Twitter back when those tweets happened. But
I didn't know about none of this stuff till recently.
Yeah, like he had screenshots of Kyle's old tweets. So I could understand if that guy tried to fake those tweets, but Kyle even admitted to it. Like, yeah, I did this. I wrote this. This was fucked up. Okay, so people didn't come to your defense. Now, let me tell you the difference between what happened to him and what happened to Aaron. The smears against Aaron are 100% false. That's the big difference. The smears that went out against Kyle, that shit was true. Kyle was tweeting about, Asian people, all Asian people look the same. Kyle was using the N-word repeatedly on Twitter for years. And look, okay, we get it. That's the past. If you say you've moved forward, you've moved forward. But the thing that I've noticed in the pattern, and I brought this up last night on the intersectionality panel, is 2021. And Kyle gets upset when people bring up his old tweets, but he's bringing up his old tweets. He's still talking about it. He's still trying to make excuses for using the N-word. So my thing is, Kyle, even in this video I just played, if you watch the whole video, he comes across as very arrogant. He never wants to take fucking responsibility. All you had to do was just say, look, Jimmy's right. I fucked up. That's it. That's it. But what he likes to do is he likes to walk the line. And like RJ said, when you play in the middle, it's all fine and good until a serious issue comes up. And sometimes you have to take a side. And I want to say that I saw several channels, smaller channels, Franco and Facts on the Ground, like Vanguard, several people came out to defend Aaron Matei. The fact that Kyle has a platform as large as he does, do you know what that could have done if he came out and defended Aaron Matei when this stuff started? Do you know the lengths that could have gone to? So it's a big difference here. And for Kyle to still call it drama, the Aaron situation is not drama. This is something serious because they are basically smearing his journalist ability here. They're smearing like his work. This is some type of McCarthyism shit. To say that someone's like affiliated with Russia or whatever, that's a serious thing. So my thing is, I think that, and I'm not saying people should cancel Kyle or whatever, but this goes into a larger issue, which we chatted about earlier about white leftists. And I'm just going to put this out there. If you were coming after Rome for the comments that he said in the past, which he apologized for, but you're defending Kyle Kullinski, your prejudice is showing. And this is a huge problem. And I've seen it time and time again in leftist space. But my thing is, I think Kyle's full of shit. The only reason he made that video is because Jimmy called him out. And to be fair, and I'm passing to you, Nick, and to be fair, Kyle started this shit. Because if Kyle wouldn't have posted the tweet that showed that Jimmy liked that other tweet, Kyle could have just kept that to himself, contacted Jimmy and said, let's have a conversation. No, Kyle decided to post the tweet and let everybody else know on Twitter that Jimmy liked this tweet. He started this beat. So at the beginning of that video, when he says, I didn't want to do this video, it's late at night and this is going to affect my show tomorrow and I got to go to DC, but
yeah, I saw that.
This. No, motherfucker, you dragged yourself into it. You started it. Every time somebody comes after Kyle, it's always everybody else's fault. This dude takes no responsibility for when he is wrong. I don't care how many fucking subscribers he has, but he is arrogant and he is full of shit. And somebody should have called his ass out a long time ago. I'll pass it to you, Nick.
Woo! Preach.
Man, so what can you say is wrong? She's speaking her truth. My thing, I was just confused. Like, bro, you made a whole diss track after you liked the tweet. Like, you know how many times I saw a friend like a tweet? I was like, bro, why you like that, man? Come on. Like, you don't see me dropping diss tracks on my friends. So it's like, I don't know, man. Did he put that video up to getting like the Vosh crowd good graces? Because these people, they operate on clicks. They have Vosh on the channel. You brought up a good point. The same people that smear Rome, who actually put in real work in the street, who apologize over and over again, put in the work in redemption. They forget Vosh, who's saying N-word. He don't give a fuck. And he like, I'm edgy. He said transphobic stuff. He released a video about him sexually harassing people. But those same people, they go out to Rome, they apologize for Vosh. So that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm consistent on this. I'm like, bro, as long as you showing that you actually doing the right thing and you moving towards supporting the left, I don't have to keep going after you. But these same people, they will cancel like black leftists if they make any mistake. Like, there are people that go after me over obvious jokes and shit posts I make on Twitter. They screenshot them. And they're like, you see what you say here? I'm like, bro, that's obviously a joke, bro. And they tag me over that over and over and over and over and over again. But meanwhile, Vosh was like, hey, yo, I sexually harassed someone. Here's a video about it. What? That's those same people. Or they apologize for that guy. And they apologize for white leftists using the N-word in 2017. David Dole on Rational National. Like, oh no, this is my friend, so I accept her apology on your behalf. This is the arrogance. This is the caucasity that we got to deal with as black leftists all the time. And people are like, oh, how can you say there's a race problem on the left? You're a divider. You are a divider as a black man for bringing up racial issues you see in your space. You guys invaded our space. You guys punch left and demand us to go to the right and support a Democratic Party that is supportive of white supremacy. But then, whenever we call you out for your racism, we're the divisive ones. Andrea, the person that David Doe was defending, she was smearing my good friend Johnny as a Nazi. How funny is that? She was actually a Nazi. She was actually a racist, but she smeared my good friend. Johnny Grass got him off Twitter on a harassment campaign. But is David Doe mad at her for starting that drama? No. Because she's a white leftist that's punching left. If you're a white leftist and punch left, they love you. I told you guys, if Fred Hampton was alive today, he's a Marxist-Leninist. He would be smeared as a tanky by voting his crowd right now if he was alive. How am I wrong? I know I got imperfections. People are always like, oh, you think you Fred? I'm like, no. The whole point of Fred Hampton Leftists and us calling this, we strive to be like our revolutionary leaders. I'm not saying there's things I can improve on. But people are like, oh, you're not a Fred Hampton Leftist? Yeah, I'm trying to improve every day. Meanwhile, you got these people that do nothing but punch left all day. And they think Fred Hampton will ally with them? They wouldn't be smearing him as a tanky all the time, like the same thing they do with our black leftists, Marxist-Leninist brothers and sisters now. I wasn't about to get into all that, but now we open the bottle. We open the bottle. That's the reality of the situation, though. And then they think Voss did great because he was like, "Hey, yo, black people should vote for their oppressors." I was on his show, and he was like, I asked him straight up, I was like, "Do you think black people should vote for their oppressors?" He said, "Yes." A white man that making $200,000 a year told black people they should vote for their oppressors, and that's the guy white leftists is like, "This is great. He's doing amazing." And I'm like, bro, you already lost, bro. You just told a black man who in poverty to vote for the Jim Crow Joe. And then when I said nothing get better, he said, "So what?" And that's the guy. He was like, "Yo, Voss did great in that debate." Like, what? Everything he said in that debate, he said Joe Biden. He made a big deal because he was like, "You don't know Joe Biden platform?" I was like, "No, I don't care because he's not gonna do none of it." And then they made a big deal like, "Oh, socialism didn't know Biden's platform, but he didn't want to vote for him." I'm like, bro, because I said he's not gonna do it. Why would I learn the platform of a politician? I'm not gonna believe anything he says he's gonna do. This is the white left we're talking about. You see what's going on here? And people ask, why you keep going after the white leftists? Why you keep going? That's why. Because you're not in our space. You're not a black leftist. Every other black leftist I talk to agrees with us on this issue. But then you got white people like, oh, this is not a problem. What's your thoughts, RJ?
Yeah, so I was going to say about like Kyle's account. Like there's an account that I've seen that has all of Kyle's old cringe tweets. Some of them are, safe to say they're funny. Some others are very controversial. And the biggest issue is that Kyle knows this account exists. Not only does he follow this account, but he retweets this account a lot. And I see it because I used to have I have his post notifications on. So every time he tweets, I see it. And he retweeted that account multiple times. So he's not like he doesn't know. And honestly, if he didn't want that out there, he could have easily found a way to get that account scrubbed and scrub all those tweets away. So that's something that I found very interesting about that.
Yeah, and another thing I want to add on to that, but I also want to say another thing about towards the end of that video. What's interesting, throughout the video, you'll hear him say over and over, "I don't like to get involved in drama. I like to stay out of this stuff." But just a couple weeks ago, he made like a 30-minute video discussing the drama between Crystal and Sager and all that shit that happened behind the scenes on the Hill. And he said in the video, "I don't like to talk about my friends. I don't like to get personal." Bitch, you just did a whole video talking about your friends and the shit that happened behind the scenes at the Hill. And this is why I want you guys to pay attention to this stuff. When you see people doing this stuff, call that shit out. No, it's not about him getting personal or dealing with drama. It's the fact that he likes to stay in the middle so he can be good on both sides. And this is one of those times where it did not work out. If you didn't come out in defense of Aaron Matei, especially you've been in this space for a long time, I call that suspect. And right now, after what I've seen from TYT, David Dole, Humanist Report, all those TYT affiliates, they are suspect. And You listen to these shows, you'll hear the same talking points. You can watch TYT, you can watch David Dole, you can watch Human Rights Report, you can watch Secular Talk. They say the same shit. So my thing is this, whether it's your friend or not your friend, look, if my friends are wrong, I'll tell them, yo, you're wrong. If I'm wrong, my friends have told me, like, Sabrina, you were wrong on that. If you can't call your friends out when you know that they're wrong and they're throwing someone's career under the bus, then fuck you. That just means that you're worried about yourself and your pocket. The only reason he came out and made that video when he said he made it late last night is because he's trying to save his pocket. He's trying to save that Patreon. That's the only reason why he came out and made that video. You didn't make the video before. So I don't care. I honestly think, I'm sorry, but these are things like, as Black leftists, we've seen these things happen, especially with people, some of these larger platforms. I think over time, people have been afraid to call them out. I don't give a shit. You know why? Because at the end of the day, I have nothing to lose. I'd rather stand up for what I feel is right. I'm definitely going to stand up for Black people. And on that note, that whole N-word thing and David Dole and them trying to bring on Pogs on a platform, by the way, that had a Black person. They were going to bring on racist Andrea on this same platform.
Promise you they wouldn't have brought it up either. Go ahead, Bob. I promise you that issue wouldn't have came up. But go ahead.
Exactly. Sarah. That's how little respect they have for Black leftists in this space. Don't be confused. Don't think that just because they bring on one Black person, the same Black person, that they're cool with us. That shit is for show. You have to watch their actions. They were going to bring a racist girl on the same platform with Isaiah, who's running for office in New York. They were going to bring her on this platform. So all these motherfuckers, and excuse my language, but this needs to be said, all of them, TYT affiliates, Kyle Kullinski, y'all motherfuckers owe Black people a huge fucking apology, because you have appropriated this shit. You have spread this shit, especially with the N-word and all that stuff. You advocated for it. You tried to make excuses for it. You owe Black people a huge apology. And if you want to ask me, well, when am I going to stop complaining about it? When you fucking apologize. And I challenge you to do that. If you can't do that, then that just shows your arrogance. And that just shows that you don't give a fuck about Black people.
Yeah, look how big their audience is. Sorry, I passed right to you, RJ, but why do you think there's so many white people think it's okay to say N-word now? Look how giant the audience is. Imagine how much that message has been fed to them over and over again. Now we got white people that say the N-word all the time. It's a problem that they created. But what were you about to say, RJ?
Yeah, just to add to your point, too, I was in Rome's Twitter circles, and we got one that called Rome a communist N-word. So they getting real uppity lately, and it was right there. And so one part I want to do say is that Kyle was trying to save his own ass in this instance. So if you look back to what even Sab said about the whole thing with Crystal and Sagar leaving the Hill, you couldn't shut him up to talk about it. He was on everybody's show to talk about it. And yes, I get it was his friend. It was one-sided in the sense that the other party you absolutely hate, you're not friends with, they're corrupt, we get it. And then the other side is Crystal, who's your friend, who you want to defend. Yeah, we get that. At the same time, what we're arguing for is that Jimmy and people at TYT you work for, if they're both your friends, what you could do preemptively is you could have pointed out what was true, what was false, and also point out the political aspects of it early on as it came in. That's a way to prevent yourself, because then people think of you as an independent arbitrator, someone who is in good faith. And then if Jimmy smears you, whatever, yeah, okay, he invites you, come on, you have this debate. And the reason why I say this is because this is the exact same thing happened during first Forced to Vote. People don't realize this, like Jimmy and TYT, okay, what happened currently is what broke the camel's back. TYT is what started digging bones back up that were buried. And so even like Kyle did a video about the Forced to Vote beef. He said, he basically said that there was sniping on both sides and that he was mostly staying out of it and like, yeah, grow up. And what I hate about his video is he's going to be an adult and whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's whenever you say that, you lose the plot. And so really, yeah, that's the problem with Forced to Vote. And with the Hill, what that is, yeah, you couldn't get him to shut up about it. So my problem with Kyle is that he could have eased all the burden on himself
if he would have talked about it earlier, the political aspects. And if it did get personal, sure, let them figure it out. But you didn't do either. So now you're forced to talk about something you didn't want to talk about. And I sympathize with Kyle, for instance, because on my Twitter timeline, I see some crazy shit. But if you comment early and say, hey, these are the political aspects that are right or wrong, and you address it early, you're taking the air out of the balloon slowly. And now it just blew up in his face and he has no other choice. So it's a lose-lose for him either way. If he would just addressed it earlier, it wouldn't be a problem. But the issue too is that he has some things problematic for himself that is going on, which Sabs has alluded earlier. So that's my final take.
Yeah, I think that covered that. I think that covers everything pretty well. We got pretty fired up there, didn't we? Maybe I'll get to. We probably get to the questions some more tomorrow. I don't have anything else. Do you guys have anything else you want to cover? We're about 90 minutes in. I think it's a pretty good time to wrap up.
Oh, tell them about Kofi, Nick.
Kofi? RJ, you go. I think you know more about it than I do.
So we are switching to Ko-fi right now. So all of you guys that are through Patreon, we appreciate it. We love it. Just know at the end of the month or starting off next month, whatever's easier for you guys, let's transition to Ko-fi. It's better for us. It'll be better for you. If you're not contributing to Patreon right now and you still want to contribute, the best thing to do is to go through Ko-fi right now. So that's what we're switching to.
By the way, I just want to add, I said earlier that Barack Obama killed the anti-war movement. Joe Biden killed the immigration justice movement. Let's also highlight the fact that Joe Biden also killed Me Too. Me Too trending right now. I'm just talking about breaking news. Like I actually saw a lot of people in the comments ask about it, about Bill Cosby just coming out. So I just wanted to say that. That's all. I haven't looked that much into the story, so that's my.
I'll address it.
You want to address it, RJ? I know Sabrina got a show. I don't want to keep her too long. But RJ, you want to?
It'll be quick.
No, I'm not rushing you. I'm just saying that.
No, it's not.
Sabrina, you can
long.
dip whatever you want, honestly. Like, cause I know you got a show at like at 6, right?
It's at 7 my time.
Okay, so that's about an hour and a half, right?
Yeah, I'll wait for RJ though.
Yeah, I'm not rushing. I was just trying to communicate. Go ahead, RJ.
Okay, so this is what's going on. So just for the premise, we all know fucking Cosby did it. Like most of us know. And if you don't, you're the black bourgeoisie like Felicia Rashad, who put out that bullshit tweet that she got ratioed to shit for. So with that premise, don't cancel me. So I'm just putting that out there now. But the reason why Cosby got off is because of this. The Fifth Amendment says that you can't do double jeopardy. And the reason why is because the prosecutor at first, they said, okay, it went, and there's two different types of cases. There's a criminal case and there's a civil case. So the prosecutors initially agreed to do a civil case in which Cosby would have to do a settlement in terms of paying off the victim money in terms of that type of agreement versus actually doing jail time. So that was the first agreement, right? But the problem is in this separate case, the second one that they had, they tried using that same evidence, which was settled under that civil case for the criminal case, right? And which was a gateway to all the other victims that Cosby had. The problem is that's double jeopardy. And so the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that it was a violation of the Fifth Amendment. And so it's not the victim's fault, and it's not at the fault of Bill Cosby. It's at the fault of the prosecutors for setting that type of parameters. These are like different types of lawyers that should know not to do this. So that's why there's an outcry for that right now. It's the prosecutor's fault.
So you teaching me because I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I saw some lawyers on Twitter right now saying that point is that the prosecutors tried to combine the civil and criminal case because they were getting kind of hungry to go after Bill Cosby. And they initially agreed to a testimony in which Bill Cosby admitted what he did. But the problem is that they, in the United States Constitution, there's a word I'm forgetting. In terms of incriminating yourself. And if you agree to a civil case and then try to use that same information for a criminal case, that's double jeopardy. And so that's what the prosecutors messed up with. That's why the Pennsylvania Supreme Court had to let him go off of that case.
Damn, so RJ with the facts. I was just reporting this because I just saw it trending, but you just taught me something. Wow.
RJ researched that fast.
Yeah, RJ. That's why we got him here. That's why we got RJ here, man. I saw. Look at Peter Dow with the flamethrower. I'll share it so you guys can see. We pretty much done here, but I think this is a I love this tweet. If you're furious about Bill Cosby is walking free, but you're giving Joe Biden a pass for multiple accusations of sexual misconduct, you're doing it wrong. Boom. and then I saw this tweet like, bro, he already knew people were gonna be mad at him for saying that. He said before the deniers flood the thread, here are the receipts. Here's some more. He's showing some Biden groping videos. So yeah, you gotta be intellectually consistent. And anyone who, and there's Tara Reid with a shout out there. Thank goodness Peter Dow still talk about Tara Reid. But I thought that was funny. That's probably the best leftist response I've seen so far. Like just letting, once again, shattering the cognitive dissonance of liberals in the Democratic Party. You got anything you want to add, Sabrina?
Nope.
Okay, other than that, I think we can wrap up. We have our main show that we're gonna do tomorrow, where we have all of the guests will be on the panel. I took last week off, but I'll be back tomorrow, and we can.
Hold on. I got the article. Let me share my screen. I want to clarify just so I don't misrepresent everything I said. So let me share. It's only gonna take 5 minutes. Let me share this.
Yeah, no problem. I don't got no rush. I just worry about Sabrina because I know she has a show.
Right. Sorry, but I just have to show this. So this is from the Associated Press. And so this is what it says. It says, but the Pennsylvania Supreme Court said Wednesday that the district attorney, Kevin Steele, who made the decision to arrest Cosby, was obligated to stand by his predecessor's promise not to charge Cosby, though there was no evidence that promise was ever put into writing. Justice David Weck, writing for a split court, said Cosby had relied on the previous district attorney's decision not to charge him when the comedian gave his potentially incriminating testimony in Constant's civil case. The court called Cosby's subsequent arrest an affront to fundamental fairness, fundamentally when it resulted in criminal prosecution that was foregone for more than a decade. It said justice, fair play and decency required the district attorney's office to stand by the decision of the previous DA. So this is all at the fault of the district attorney's office in terms of the current one for this new case versus what happened with the old one. And also too, I believe Cosby's defense attorney was a former Trump attorney. So this is all basically deep court case stuff. And that's why it's at the fault of really the district attorney's office in terms of knowing this type of information.
Okay, so that's very interesting.
Yeah, and it says, in a statement, Steele said Cosby went free on a procedural issue that is irrelevant to the facts of the crime. Says, my hope is that this decision would not dampen the reporting of the sexual assault victims. Still believe in no one is above the law, including those who are rich and famous and powerful. So the reason why Cosby got off in short is because of this short procedural rule that no one even knows is clarified, but was promised to Bill Cosby by the previous district attorney. So that's the mixy political constitutional law stuff that's going on right now. That's why on that technicality, the Supreme Court let him go.
So I'm glad he broke that down because you taught us a ton about that, and I know Chad was like, "You killing it." I gotta cover this. I just saw this going on right now. But I say I know Sabrina, you got a show, so you can feel free to leave if you want to, because I know you gotta get prepared for that. I gotta talk about this. Cause I saw Ilhan trending again, and I just saw why. Thanks for coming on, Sabrina. Thank you. I just saw this. I was like, all right, I gotta talk about this. I gotta talk about this. I saw Ilhan was trending earlier. I saw someone mention a comment that was like, "You guys are gonna talk about Ilhan today?" I was like, "What?" Because I ain't seen what's going on. She's trending on Twitter because the neolibs and the conservatives are melting down again. Because she was on Tapper last night and she pretty much was like, "I said what I said." So I actually want to see this. So you guys are watching our reaction live to this. I saw this right now. I figured we cover this. Let me put sound on here. All right, now share it to the stream. So let's watch this. I don't know if you saw this, but this being the first time me actually seeing this. So let's see why it won't melt down.
Comments you made earlier this month about the U.S. and Israel, you were questioning Secretary of State Blinken about where victims of war crimes could get justice. You made comments to him, and also you tweeted, quote, "We must have the same level of accountability and justice for all victims of crimes against humanity. We have seen unthinkable atrocities committed by the U.S., Hamas, Israel, Afghanistan, and the Taliban," unquote. Ultimately, Democratic leaders said that equating the U.S. and Israel with Hamas and the terror and the Taliban quote, foments prejudice. And as you know, a group of Jewish House Democrats wrote a letter to President Biden saying that accusing Israel of acts of terror, as you and other...
I'm not going to stop this that much. I was just going to say I got a lot to say about this. This is the first time I'm seeing this, so I got a lot to say about
members
this.
Of the squad.
But I'll let it finish. Holy shit.
...have done is anti-Semitic. Do you regret these comments?
I don't. I think it's really important to think back to the point that I was trying to make. Obviously, I was addressing Secretary of State Blinken. The cases are put together in front of the ICC. ICC has been investigating. I know that, you know, some of my colleagues don't lend legitimacy to the ICC, but I tend to think that people around the world who have experienced injustice need to be able to have a place where they can go. And as a country that helped found the ICC and supported it, I think that it is really important for us to continue to find ways in which people can find justice around the world.
Some of your fellow House Democrats have been frustrated, as you know.
One more time here that she said, so I don't misrepresent her tweet. Here's a tweet here. So to start out with, the leftist criticism of this is that you do not compare Hamas with the United States and Israel. I'm asking you guys, what has Hamas done wrong? What will be the response if another country invade the United States and will start stealing and bulldozing land? So once again, so the leftist perspective on this is that it should be a one state where everyone live in equal law. So that would be a proportionate response on the act of Palestinians and Hamas to go against Israel and the United States because they were committing an act of genocide. And to hint anything else, to hint that Hamas and Palestinian people are wrong in any way, that's you apologizing for the act of genocide, whether you know that or not, because you're saying that you cannot resist genocide. So that's the leftist. I just want to get that out of the way because I don't hate Ilhan for saying this because unfortunately, this is as far left we get in the Democratic Party. And this is why, if you actually care about these issues, that's why you know that we got to give up on the idea of hijacking the Democratic Party. Because this is as far left we can get. As far left as we can get is a progressive Zionist. But this is not, I always got to say this, when I say stuff like this is not me shitting on Bernie on Ilhan. I'm just telling you guys the reality of the situation. Because, as I told you, the leftist position is one-state solution. And I evolved on this issue as well. A lot of people were like, we thought the two-state solution would work. It sounds good in theory, but it doesn't work because you have a power structure that's funded by the largest military in the world that is ran by right-wing neo-fascists. And that's not exaggeration because Naftali Bennett is worse than Benjamin Netanyahu. And Benjamin Netanyahu is 100% worse than Trump. Because the worst thing you can call Trump, you can say, people call him a white nationalist. You guys understand that ethno-fascist like that is worse than that. So even the worst thing they call Trump is not as bad as the reality of Benjamin Netanyahu and Bennett. To be 100% clear. So I want to clear the air on that first. Now, how telling is it that you have people melting down over this statement that Ilhan made, and now she pretty much went on Tapper and doubled down. I give her props for that. That's why I want to give you the criticism first. I give her props because I would have thought that she would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry," but I guess it's not Ilhan. I guess I didn't get enough credit because I thought she would probably walk it back, but she went on Tapper and she like, "I said what I fucking said." What's your initial thoughts on that, RJ?
Well, my initial thoughts is good for her in that instance, but also I do recognize is that and even in terms of rhetoric, it's difficult to get the narrative out from the mainstream media. And I do want to talk about ideology because you do make a good point that yes, this is the farthest left we can go politically, and it's because we're in a capitalistic system. So the farthest left you can go based on the capitalistic standards is that yes, you can go far right as possible, but the leftest you can go is social democracy. That's where you're going to get social democrats like the squad members and Bernie. And if you look at outside the American political system, then you get the socialists, the communists, and anarchists. So that's why it's important for us to make the groundswell on the ground, make people have a love and understand what socialism and communism and anarchism is, so that you can push the system to move as far as left as possible. So you can't really do that electorally all the time unless you get an opportunity, like maybe force the vote, which we tried to do for the progressives, but they wouldn't bite on it. And a lot of times worked against it. So that's the problem. But in specifics with Ilhan Omar, you have to give her props on this, because when you go on these media shows, the establishment knows what they're doing. They know what shows that to talk to try to get you to press. Like, people look at Jake Tapper as this like cool arbiter centrist dude who's just calling balls and strikes. And so when he lays up a question for you like that, it's baiting you to rebut. It's baiting you to apologize and reframe what you're saying. So it's props on her for really standing up for herself and literally naming her source she gets her information from. Because what she's doing is she's making the onus from about her to about an international body in which she's agreeing with based on the rules and knowledge what she's getting from. So that's a good focus what she did.
You don't like. I'm literally just scrolling through this tab. Like, we breaking this live pretty much here. You don't see none of the standard liberal blue check motherfuckers defending Ilhan at all, because like, this is why I don't think these people, like, it's all like, it kills me when people are like, why do you go after liberals? They are our closest allies. What? I see people say that all the time. They be like, why you go after liberals? They're our closest allies. Yeah, they're more than flawed. They be like, they're just flawed, but they're closest to our left. Bro, they're all, if you're a Zionist, you're not close to me on the Overton window. Like, you're not even close. If you're for pro-police budgets, you're not even close to me on the Overton window. If you're not even for Medicare for all, you're not close, because I think we should nationalize healthcare. So what are you guys talking about? That doesn't make sense. Like, Republican voters are to the left of Joe Biden on weed. Like majority of Republican voters think we should decriminalize marijuana. Joe Biden can't even do that. And you have some people that are still like Democratic Party sympathizers. They be like, oh, these people are close to us though. You can't be mean to them. Fuck them. They are like the biggest obstacle of progress that we had to deal with. What was that, RJ?
I said the difference between like Democrats and Republicans culturally about marijuana is culturally Democrats are like, oh, it's immoral. Oh, it's not cool. You can't do that. It's like the same like 60s, 70s like thing in terms of using drug abuse. While as the Republicans are like, we can make a whole lot of fucking money off of this shit. So they want to create businesses, but the problem is the federal government has all these rules and restrictions, and you really have to sell in the black market to make a buck. So that's the difference. And
I want to bring this up because I'm glad that Gatinho on YouTube, I'll give you a shout out because you reminded me of this. Hamas actually came out with a statement when Ilhan did her both side thing. They were like, bro, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, bro, we are literally getting our houses bulldozed. Like, they are killing our people, and you want both sides this? So it's funny because Ilhan actually was getting attacked from both sides. And I remember my friend American was like, you guys should not be praising Ilhan for saying this at all. I remember she put out a tweet and it went viral. And then there were a lot of like the DSA types, they were going after her. But I was like, she was right though. She was like, Ilhan's statement wasn't really good. I won't say I give her credit where I think credit is due as being the most left, but this is why I said like we need to move past the Bernie Sanders left, the DSA left. They're behind. Like, it was cool for 2016, I guess, but they're behind. Like, you gotta be 100% pro-Palestine. There's no both sides in this shit. There's no progressive behind this. You know, that been a problem so long, they literally call him PEP. Progressive Accept Palestine. And that what Bernie Sanders been his entire career. But at the same time, I have nuance enough where I acknowledge at least Bernie Sanders is better than the average neoliberal. Not great, but at least he's better. Because I still remember Palestinians was excited and happy when Bernie Sanders, because he was like the first candidate ever to at least acknowledge that Palestinians are people. He was on the debate stage. He's like, yeah, I think we should keep Palestine in mind and maybe leverage Israel aid. Him saying that was the furthest left shit that anyone ever heard in an election. Something that George Bush Sr. did. They didn't report on that in the 90s. I reported on my show. In the 90s, and I think it was like 92 or so. I can find the source. But he was putting Israel aid on conditions. So Joe Biden Democratic Party is to the right of what George Bush Sr. was on this issue. So that's fair game to call that out.
Holy shit, this is a good comment that we have on YouTube.
I'm just talking to some chat now, but go ahead.
Yeah, it says from Homer Usaris, it says, true, what Chris Hedges meant was that this generation's
has been robbed of their own Malcolm X because Joe Biden jailed him before he can gain prominence.
Man, like,
holy fuck.
Yeah, that's a great comment. Powerful comment. I had another comment. I lost it though. The chat kind of moving fast. I saw someone. I don't remember who it is, but I still kind of remember the question. Because someone was pretty much asking, like, what is the solution? Because when I'm talking about we can't rely on the takeover of the Democratic Party. I mean, we're for Hampton Leftists. I think we are in a state of late stage capitalism that is so bad that we need immediate aid and immediate help right now. And what I mean by that, I think the primary focus of the left should not be on investing these massive amount of resources into the elections. How about spending all this money helping another millionaire get elected? Why not donate that to mutual aid? We're going to need a lot of that coming up soon. Why not donate that to a homeless fund, a food bank? So when I see, like, and this is a position I had to adjust to, because when I see the squad voting for Nancy Pelosi, when I see them siding with getting the police more money, I'm like, how can you justify spending money on politicians that increase the police budget, that are complicit with that? That they can't even say anything about Julian Assange. They put out weak comments on Israel-Palestine, even the good ones. They're being complicit with and not saying anything about the Syria bombings. Fucking, you have a legend, an anti-war legend, Mike Gravel, died. AOC said nothing when Mike Gravel died. But when John McCain died, she gave him a tongue bath. Doesn't that say everything you need to know? And I'm not. And the argument they would use, they're like, "Oh, come on, they're the best we got." If you believe that, fine. But my question is, why should we donate to them? Can you answer that? Why should I donate to them instead of what Rome is doing? Well, instead of what Finney is doing, feeding people. That's my question. That's what my response would be. And that's the difference between us and another show. We don't focus on electoralism too much. But what were you about to say, RJ?
What was I going to say? I was going to say,
I know
like,
I talked too much.
Yeah, like in terms of why donating to them. I mean, the whole reason why I see a lot of people on the left donating to Nina right now is because of fucking Hillary Clinton and Jim Clyburn. Because it's flashbacks. It's literally Vietnam flashbacks for us. Because the Clintons fucked over Bernie in 2016. And in 2020, Clyburn and Joe Biden and the entire DNC establishment fucked over Bernie in 2020. Now, we all know Bernie was a cuck in terms of defending himself. But those are the facts. So it gives us Vietnam flashback. Because we're the ones carrying this motherfucker. Bernie's getting all the benefits. When it comes down to it, he just won't stand up. In terms of leading a presidential election in 2016, 2020, we all know it's a little bit more nuanced with Bernie in the Senate, because we see at times Bernie stands up for something, the establishment, Democrats and Republicans crush him. Then there's other times where in pure rhetoric, he could be an asshole and stand up for something, and he just completely capitulates to Joe Biden. Like in terms of the arms deal to Israel shortly after Israel obliterated the Palestinians, then Bernie decides to withdraw his hold on the bill, and we all crushed him for it because it's being a cut. So I can understand all factions the way Bernie Sanders acts.
I got I guess it's not so breaking, but it'd be breaking for the stream. I'm gonna just say Donald Rumsfeld is dead. The chief architect
crab video
of the Iraq War. You know what's going to be very disgusting today? You're going to see a lot of people who didn't say anything when Mike Gravel died. I already see it now, strolling into the trending tab. It's already pretty depressing / hilarious. The same liberal blue checks that said nothing when Mike Gravel died are saying rest in peace for a war criminal. And this is a tweet I just found. Donald Rumsfeld wasn't just a prime villain of the W administration and not just the architect of the war on terror. That alone makes him as bad as it gets. Like top 1% of 1% of 1% of human history. Like if you have anything to do with the destruction of the Middle East, like what other tyrants have accomplished that? And I know a lot about history. I know a lot about tyrants. I know like Alexander the Great. I mean, you had the Mongols. But I mean, what other society managed to destabilize entire regions? Multiple. This is what Chomsky talked about when he said the Republican Party the most evil organization that ever lived. He was like, yeah, there are other, like, what the Nazis did was really bad. But, like, we are not only causing climate change that will end human life as we know it. We destroyed the Middle East. We destabilized other countries, like the global South. We literally implementing child slavery in Africa. Nestle, I didn't get a chance to break that story down, cover it, but Nestle won a case on human slavery case in the Supreme Court. So our Supreme Court just legalized slavery, child slavery in other countries, legal. The United States is the leading cause of terror in the world. And people are like, if I say that, they're like, damn, you're extreme. Nah, not really. I'm just looking at the facts. I mean, I don't think I'm radical, but if people, I guess that would be. But anyway, I'm gonna finish the tweet. I didn't finish it. His vision of constant, quiet, low visibility war became Obama doctrine and is now permanent. Death itself is too kind for him. So, like, even to this day, he's racking up bodies. When he's died, when he retired, everything that we see our foreign policy is right now is led to him. So it's about. So this is all I'm gonna say. There is no. I don't care if like people think I'm wrong saying this. I think the alternative is even more painful. There's nothing wrong with hating your oppressors. In fact, I think it's very healthy. Because if you hate your oppressors, that's self-love. If you convince yourself that Joe Biden, who done a ton of damage to your community, that Donald Rumsfeld, these people are the lesser of two evils, that is you saying that your life is not inherently as valuable as other communities. That's why I didn't accept that line of thinking. So if you said Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils, that's you telling me that the crime bill, the bankruptcy bill, him signing with Wall Street, him crashing our wealth, you're saying that's not that big of a deal. Trump discomfort is more of a big deal. That's why I reject that. It's part of my ideology. Because if I was to accept that, I would accept that you saying my black life don't matter. That's why I always stood. And that's why I say I think it's healthy to hate your oppressors. So he can rest in peace. We can end on that topic though. You got anything you want to add RJ? We wrap up. We 2 hours in, so I think that's good.
Oh, I don't know. I'm good.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back tomorrow for the main panel. This is almost like a mini weekly podcast episode pretty much. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Fred Hampton Leftist, signing out.